songs that we had to remember, and I could not. They had a funny thing. They would one of the guys that was more experienced at it. He says, if you don't know the words, don't mouth it while facing the audience because they'll know that you're mouthing it. He said, if you forget the words, turn to someone and mouth it, and that way the audience won't be able to read your lips and see you don't know what you're doing. So I spent a lot of time looking at my,
Yeah. Grant, how soon do you want to hit on air here? We're getting pretty close to time.
I am actually just push the button. Just making sure everything looks good, and it looks good. So I'm ready to go when you guys are.
Hey, fire up when ready.
All right. Ready. 3, 2, 1.
That's some echo from somebody playing it locally.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tangicolor computer.
No, we
Streaming
can't hear the
live on
ads and
YouTube
stuff.
and Roku, available as a podcast and enjoyed the world over. And now, here's your host.
what is that?
Hello, this is Grant Leighty. I'm filling in today for Stevie Stroh. We have a good show here for everybody, and it's going to be a hit because I'm on the show today, not Stevie. And Curtis is also co-hosting as well, so that even makes it double better.
Yeah,
How's it going, everybody?
More modest than Grant, but other than that, yeah.
We have a couple of guests here today, which we'll get to here shortly. But I'm going to send it over to Curtis here and let him take it from there.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. Special treat today. We have Frank Hogg of Frank Hogg Laboratories. And now, I don't know, would you call yourself a wanderer, digital nomad? Basically, he has no home. He just wanders around in a camper all year. Living the free lifestyle. So, and he's had a long history with computers, a long history with the Coco, a long history with OS 9 and Flex, and we'll get into that during his interview. And we also have a new guest here, Terry Trapp. So we'll save the long introduction for Frank when we actually get to his segment. But I thought maybe we'd just talk to Terry first and see, how are you involved with the Coco? How did you get into computers and the Coco itself? And what are you up to these days?
Oh, okay. Well, been a Coco user since I was 10 years old. Got one for Christmas like a lot of kids my age did. So went with the 16K Coco 1 to 64K Coco 2. And eventually, I think in 87, I got the Coco 3. Around 1990, I was able to earn my own money and buy things for it.
Yay.
You know, get the upgrade to 512. Got real interested in OS 9. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had a friend that was really into OS 9. Some of you guys may know him, Trix Ferrer. He did a little bit of stuff with OS 9 back then, and so he helped me out a lot with that. Basically, that's how I got my start in the computer industry, still doing systems work. Now I'm a manager. I don't get to push a lot of buttons these days. So I built a new garage out here, or a place inside my garage so I can work on some of this stuff. So I've got 2 dead Cocos that needed some love. And last night I live streamed a cap replacement on one of them. And it turned out really great. You know, was able to identify that definitely it was a problem with the caps, and did a cap replacement. Michael Kent provides a cap kit on eBay. Was able to pull all the caps out, put the new ones on, turn it on. Man, worked great. But pretty much the Coco 3 and OS 9 is where I got my start.
Cool. Do you have a Coco 3 now or just Coco 1 and 2s?
I have 2 Coco 3s. I have the Coco 3 that I got in 1987, and that thing looks like it's been through a battle. Part of for some reason, I cut part of the top of it off and put a fan on there to try and keep the RAM cool. I don't know why. And so it ruined the case on that one. One of the projects that I'm going to be working on is I want to get that's the one that I was not able to repair. I've got another cap kit coming for it. It obviously has some problems, and it appears that it has issues on both the positive and negative side of the power supply on it. So I'm gonna take the board out of that thing. I want to do what I've always wanted to do with a Coco is put it in a PC case. Way back in the day, it's really cool that Frank Hogg is on this CoCoTALK because big fan, and I wanted a TC9 so bad. I mean, it was one of those things to where I get the money together. It's like, Frank's not selling those anymore. It's like, oh, very, very disappointed in that. But I understand the all of the difficulties with that particular machine trying to make that work. Whenever you've got one supply of gimme chips, it's not you're at someone else's
Mercy.
Mercy on that. So I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to put him in a PC case. I'm going to do a little work with a microcontroller called a Parallax Propeller. They actually have a new one that's coming out, and I've got an evaluation board coming. And this thing has like 64 pins on it, and basically it's just built as a data pump. And I'm going to see what soft peripherals I can make with that. Try to do 6551 emulation, try to do drive controller emulation. The key project that I want to do, and I've never seen it done, I don't know why it hasn't been done. I'll probably figure out why it hasn't been done, because there's a lot of people out there much smarter than me. Want to plug an AT keyboard into that thing and have it essentially seize control of the PIA whenever it pulls the PIA and deliver characters that are typed into a PC keyboard, without having to, do any of the things you would do, like with the Cloud9 product and all of that, so that you don't have to solder anything. You just plug it in this whole thing in as a cartridge. It has a USB port. Plug in your USB keyboard, and you'll have remote keyboard and all of your other soft peripherals. So that's the plan. We'll see how that plays out over the next few months.
Well, definitely keep us up to date on that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, how did you ever follow us, or how did you find?
Oh, I've been on the TRS-80 Color Computer Coco group on Facebook for quite a while. I followed quite a bit of your stuff, Ron.
Oh, okay.
Familiar with a lot of the stuff that's going on, out there. It's amazing to me that all these years later, there are so many people involved with the color computer, and it's just fun. I mean, it's just great, all the things that people are doing. And the technology that we have now makes it very easy to do all kinds of hardware hacking and just really cool stuff with these old machines. And it's amazing to think how, looking at it now, how simple all of that stuff was. When you're 10 years old, it's all magic.
It sure is.
You have no idea how this thing works, Yeah. And, luckily, I had a friend that was able to pull some of that magic back and show me how, what the boot process is. I had no idea. You turn it on, had no idea that the processor would jump to a specific place in memory and start executing instructions. That was just beyond my comprehension. And so going through and learning OS 9, coming from that background, it applies to everything, every machine. Every machine you deal with, whether it be a Mac or it be a PC or a Spark, all of it operates when you get down to that fundamental level the same way. Whenever you power it up, from there you can just work your way up the stack and understand how all of it works.
Cool.
I see we have a few other people that have joined us too on the call. So welcome to Steve and Jason and John. Anybody else I can't see on the screen at the moment?
Yeah, Coco, man, you look in your review mirror, you got a cop behind you.
Yeah, you kind of started the show early. We're just starting about 10 minutes late.
Well, that's because Stevie's not here. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know Frank has a hard out at 4, and I have no idea how long this interview could last because he's lived a very entertaining life, as you can see from his books and stuff, which we'll discuss later. But I want to hit the interview with that there. So without further ado, welcome to Frank Hogg, who is currently in Florida for the winter, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, I'll give a very brief introduction. Bill Noble and I actually did some work for Frank when he was doing the TC9 project in the early 90s. I think it was Bruce Eisted did the first version of the TC9 drivers along with Bob Puppo, if I remember correctly. And then Bruce was getting too busy with his quote unquote real job. And he actually had moved from Calgary to Regina, which is only a couple hours from where I live, and was helping them open a branch office. And we kind of worked out the details that Bill and I would take over the software development for the drivers. So Bill and I drove down and visited with Bruce for an afternoon and got all the software and the comments and talked to Bruce and kind of went through some things. And then we took it back home, and that's where we started doing that. We also accidentally got some of the famous level 2 version 3 upgrade before it became public, because Bruce, of course, was one of the developers on that. He included some, but not all, of the components of the upgrade, which Bill and I noticed immediately after we got back home and booted it up. So might go into some details on that too, because Frank was actually one of the hardware vendors that was involved in the level 2 upgrade, making sure everything was compliant with where Kevin Darling and Kent Myers and the rest were taking the software. But I will now turn it over to Frank. Maybe a little bit of early history about yourself and how you got into computers and how you got into the Coco and what all you did, etc. So take it away, Frank.
Okay, I'll be glad to tell you that. In 1976, I bought my first computer, which was a engineering board called the KIM-1, K-I-M. I forget what that stood for, but it was a little single board computer. It had 1K of RAM and 2K of ROM. My neighbor, Tom Spear, was a computer guy for the Syracuse utility called Niagara Mohawk. And he had a Southwest Tech S50 bus computer. And those were kits. And so I bought one of those and put that together. And, that's got into Flex with that. And we were all, Dale Puckett at that time was going to Syracuse University. He was in the Coast Guard, and they were sending him to photo school, like, learn photojournalism. And he was he did a software program that I believe was called Read Test. And Tom, my neighbor, did something we called Remote, which was, something to do using a telephone, to communicate. And I was buying all these computers and I had 2 or 3 S50 bus computers, and I was deducting them on my income tax as business expenses, and I got a little nervous about that after a while. So I said to Dale and Tom, I said, why don't I start a business? I'll sell your software and pay you a royalty, and that way I can legitimately deduct all of these these pieces of equipment. So I did that.
Now, this is back when you were still doing the dental lab thing, or?
Yeah, I had a dental laboratory, and it was called Frank Hogg Dental Laboratory. Had not incorporated at that point, and so we were doing that. Radio Shack announced they were going to do the color computer with a 6809, and we were all doing 6809 stuff with these S50 bus computers. So I was kind of excited. I said, well, if they're getting into it, there might be a market for what we had. But the initial one you couldn't do anything with. It would only go up to 32K. We needed 64 to run Flex. So it was kind of, I bought one and it kind of just languished there for a while. When they came out with I don't remember the model number of it, Coco 2 maybe, the one that had 32K. My nephew, Rich Hogg, he was a software guy working for Bell Labs at the time. And he discovered that by adding 4 wires, there was something on one of the chips that you could access all 64K if the memory was good. And I thought, oh, cool, And so he wrote an article about it, but because he was working for Bell Labs, we put it out under my name, called 64K for free. And I figured, oh, great, now I can sell Flex, the operating system. So I went down to TSC. They were in the Tri-Cities area. Visited them, talked about getting a license for Flex. They wanted $12,000 for a exclusive license. And I told him, I said, no, I don't think I'm going to sell very many copies of this. I don't want an exclusive license. So I didn't, who knew? You know, I didn't for sure. So I bought a non-exclusive license for $6,000, and I worried that I'd never get my money back on it. You know, I thought, oh, geez, I don't know if I'm going to get my money back on this or not. And when the article came out, and if I recall correctly, it came out in Rainbow and in
Color Computer News.
Color Computer News, yeah.
Bill Size, yeah.
Bill, yeah. We had just one line, telephone line, because dental laboratory didn't need much. I had about 6 employees, and Helene Hayes, it's actually spelled Helen Hayes, but she didn't want to be called Helen Hayes. It was Helene Hayes. She was taking the calls, and she never took her hand off the cradle. As soon as she put the phone back down, it would ring again. And it was someone ordering a copy of Flex and some other software. And everybody wanted to buy RAM chips, because part of the 64K for free article was a little basic program that would tell you if your RAM was bad. Of course, I didn't have any RAM chips. I could have, you know, I missed out on making quite a bit of money by not having those in stock. But we were busy enough just making software. We made the manuals on a copier back then.
Who actually wrote the Flex?
That was done by Rich. Rich did Flex. He did OPAC for OS9. You know, remember, you may not know
Yeah,
about
the
it.
high-res driver for the text screen.
And what's Flex like? Is it somewhat like OS9? Or, you know, what is it?
No, it's a single user operating system.
It's more like CPM.
Yeah, CPM, DOS. It was pretty basic. It was only 4K, so it was you know, pretty easy to modify and write for. I had the way it loaded. You would load the initial part of it, and then it would load all these add-ons. So whenever we made a change to it, there was another add-on, and it got to the point where it wasn't fitting on the disk, because we were putting that out on were they 340K, 350K floppies?
153K.
It's 153. Not very much. And the load was, gosh, it was huge. So with all the other software that went out, they weren't fitting on on them anymore. So I spent a month, I had to. I didn't have the source for Flex, so I had to disassemble it and then add the modifications in one at a time and check to see if, you know, I'd screwed something up. It took me about a month, and I got it back down to 4K. It loaded a lot faster, and then we had room on the floppies. That was back when they were costing $1 a piece, and that might not sound like a lot today, but we were selling a lot of them. So it amounted to some money, but it was mostly just because the software didn't fit on it, and I didn't want to have to send out 2 discs.
Do you remember what kind of people were buying it? Was it just from the United States, or was it from Australia or anything? Or
we had customers all over the world. I don't remember now, you know, where it was from, but there was a lot of people everywhere buying it, and I couldn't even tell you how many copies we sold. It was in the thousands.
And was it mostly business customers? Because I know you guys used to sell a lot of the quote unquote business type software like Stylograph and Sculptor later on and that kind of stuff. So
it was mostly guys like you. It was what I didn't realize at the time, because I wasn't keeping up with the color computer market. You know, I had one, but I wasn't paying much attention to it. And what I didn't realize when we came out with that 64K for free was that all the people that had color computers were complaining about not having any software. There was, you know, I want to do something with this, and there was nothing there, nothing to do anything.
Yeah, well, that was the period where Tandy pretty much had kicked it out there and then left it.
Yeah. And so I come along, and by then I had quite a reasonable catalog of software that worked with Flex beyond the 2 that Dale and my neighbor had written. Probably, I don't know, 20, 30 programs. So all of a sudden, everybody who was clamoring for more software, by adding 4 wires to their color computer, they could run Flex and all this other software. And it was, you know, a crying need, if you will. They really, really wanted it. So it was, I equated that period of time. I felt like a leaf in a creek in the spring. You know, it was just being carried along without any real control over what was going on. You know, it was just, you know, and people were calling up. You know, I've got this software and everything. They, you know, yeah, send it in. We'll sell it and give you a royalty on it. We had a lot of stuff in the catalog, and a lot of stuff didn't sell. You know, it was just in the catalog, and you know, I was hiring more people all the time. I think he ended up with 12 or 13 or 14, mostly girls, and you know, taking orders and you know, putting the packages together and shipping it out. It was a wild time. I'll tell you a funny story. The first copier I had, the copier I had when this first came out was just a simple little copier. The top moved back and forth, you know, and made copies. And it only had a 3,500 rate per month. That was all you're supposed to copy per month. And we had that thing going all day long. As soon as you came in the morning, the copiers started going. And after an hour or so, it would overheat and it would start wheezing. And then it so the thing we did, we'd turn it off, and the lid opened up, you know, like the hood of a car. And you open the thing up and have wind blowing on it. And after a while, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you know, close it back up again until it started wheezing again, you know. So I kept buying bigger copiers that would do more and more stuff, because back then printers weren't around that you could get stuff printed on. You know, that was part of the experience in the early days of trying to get the manuals done and duplicating the discs. It just took a lot of time to do it. So,
well, how different would it be if you were able to email people stuff? It would have been different, huh?
Well, you know, there was a lot of things that were different back then. People were expecting to get updates for free. You know, so if you came out with a new version of the software, people expected it for nothing. Well, it costs money to make a disk and send it out. You couldn't do it by email like you can now. You couldn't download this stuff. And now updates are quite often, you know, you get free updates on a piece of software for a while, but after a while you have to buy a new one. So the revenue stream was limited to one shot, where you sold them whatever they were going to buy the first time, and then it was an expense from there on out. Things, you know, everybody learned their lesson. Adam Angst, if you remember, he had the Osborne one. And I met him at one of the computer shows. He came out with the Osborne 2, and then he made the mistake of announcing the Osborne Executive, and everybody stopped buying until the Executive came out, and he went out of business because he ran out of money, because he was using income coming in to pay for the development and so forth of this other computer. Well, nowadays, you know, if Apple's coming out with something new, or other companies, they announce it, you can go buy it in the store. You know, it's not something that you have to wait 2 or 3 months to get. So, but these are all lessons that I hadn't learned and other people hadn't learned. So whenever we announced something that we were coming out with, you know, the revenue stream would dry up a bit until we got it out. That made things a little difficult to run as a business. So, and plus I'm not that good a businessman. You know, I'm a dental technician that plays around with computers like you guys, you know. So it was I was in the right place at the right time. You know, I was kind of like the third string wide receiver, you know, that goes out and he just happens to run to the right part of the football field where the quarterback is throwing the ball, you know. And
yeah, but just think, Frank Hogg laboratories, you know, it looked so like, you know, there was a large building somewhere with smokestacks and, you know.
Yes.
You know,
guys running around in lab coats. And...
yeah, you look at your ads were done well. You know, they looked very stately, or, you know, like
and you had a very large ad presence, because I remember, like in Color Computer News, you guys had 5-page ads regularly every month type thing with software. And
that was the first magazine I subscribed to, and it's like page after page of this stuff.
Yeah, I think we had, I don't know, 15 or 20 pages total between all the magazines every month. I mean, they duplicated on some. I didn't know that we didn't have to do that, but we had money coming in the door, so well, why not? You know, some of the stuff
Were there some magazines you didn't advertise in, like Color Computer Magazine or Hot Cocoa?
Well, we advertised in Hot Cocoa, as I recall.
Yeah, the one on the screen right now is actually the one from the first issue of Hot Cocoa, the color one, Grant.
Yeah.
Go back.
I don't think it wasn't any we didn't advertise in. I advertised in 80 micro. Matter of fact, we advertised OS 9 level 1 for the color computer in 80 micro. I had been called by Kaplan about he was, seeing all the success I was having with Flex, and he wanted to get OS 9 on a color computer. So we made a gentleman's agreement, which is not something I would do again with him. That we would develop OS 9 and sell it on the color computer. And Rich had it running when Kaplan called me up and he says, there's some problems there. There's some things it's not going to be possible for you to get that running. And besides, I've sold it to Tandy, so I can't let you have it like we agreed, and I was a little annoyed with him, but I thought, what the heck, if Tandy was selling OS 9, I've got a lot of OS 9 software that I'd sell, so I'll make out okay. But we actually had it running when he was telling us it wouldn't work. So,
yeah, I remember you mentioned it. You had a column in Color Computer News, which I think you later took to Rainbow after CC Unfolded, called 64K Corner, which you started in, oh God, what was it, late 81, early 82, somewhere in there?
Oh wow,
that's you were mentioning you were mentioning that you were porting OS 9 over, and you were planning on having an official announcement, and then the whole Tandy thing happened.
Yeah.
This here that Grant's bringing up now is actually one of your 64K Corner columns from, was it February of '83, Grant? But this,
I
this
believe it was.
Yeah. This one was kind of interesting because, I mean, one thing I know about you is that you've always been a very straight shooter, and you don't pussyfoot around mentioning things. Is that a nice way of putting it?
Yeah.
But yeah, you were talking in this particular column about a teacher that was asking for advice, that they wanted to get some recommendations of how to sell Cocos into schools versus getting Apple IIs and pets and that kind of stuff. And it kind of summarizes quite well your attitude, I guess.
Oh, really? I don't remember it, but I didn't realize I should do my homework before I did this.
Well, I was just going to read not the whole article, but I'll read the one portion of it. Let me just bring it up here.
Please do. I'm prepared to be embarrassed.
Okay. Okay, so this is like right in the middle of the article here. And this one, apparently you wrote at December 22nd at midnight in your den, and you labeled the subject as desperate attempt to write 64K Corner for February of 1983, because you were literally on the last day we were supposed to get it to Bill in order to make the magazine. So, and you went, that reminds me, today I received a call from a fellow, like many calls I've received in the past along this very line. It seems that this guy wanted to buy Cocos for his school, and he had opposition from other teachers that were pushing Apples. He wanted to get some help in convincing his opponents that the Coco with 609 was a better computer than the Apple. As happens in cases like these, the other fellows were sold on the Apple and didn't want to listen to what he had to say. This is one very hard nut to crack. Apple has been doing one heck of a job selling their computer. And now my favorite part. The fact that it is based on old technology, runs 3 times slower, and costs several times more than the Coco doesn't seem to get through to proponents of the Apple. The only thing I can suggest to say to people like this is this. If you want to spend 3 times as much money to buy a computer based on obsolete technology that runs 3 times slower, is harder to program and upgrade, then I have some swampland in Florida that I think you may be interested in, which coincidentally you're actually in right now. What else can you do? Those commercials can brainwash them if they don't watch out, and it's impossible to talk someone out of something once they've made up their mind. The only thing you can do is plant a seed of doubt. Maybe they will take off the rose-colored glasses and compare the 2 computers. Most people like this just want you to agree with them. They don't want you to upset their apple cart, pun intended. And I would like to see everyone buy a Coco. It's not just for business reasons. The real reason is I'm getting tired of hearing the same old story from people who bought Apples, Vicks, TIs, and others. They all say the same thing. Why didn't you tell me what the Coco could do? I wouldn't have bought this piece of junk. Well, what can I say? Sooner or later, they may all come around. Let's hope it's sooner.
Boy, that was a brilliant piece of writing, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was good.
I remember reading that back in the day.
Oh, man, I don't remember writing it, but
I always find I always find your 60K corners entertaining because you were like blunt and to the point. You were doing like speed tests between TSC Basic versus Microsoft Basic, and basically razzing the competition. It was great because most, like Rainbow, especially at that time, was very polite, talking about any competitors type thing, and CCN just let you go free.
Yeah.
You got to admit that the business model did work for Apple.
Well, Frank uses an Apple now, so I guess it kind of tells you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny little story about. I used to do the column in Rainbow every month, and I had a little joke in the beginning of the column because I was sitting on I think it was probably writing on a Mac, whatever I was writing it on. I reached over to pick up the remote to change the TV channel or to mute it or something, and it wasn't working. And I realized it wasn't the remote; it was a calculator. And I thought that was kind of funny, so I put that in the column. And the guy who was editor, I can't remember his name.
Is that Bill Size?
No, this was a Rainbow.
Oh, Rainbow. Reed?
Reed, yeah. He took that out. And I didn't like the fact that he was editing. I didn't mind to do, punctuation and smell checking and stuff like that, but I didn't like being edited without being consulted. So the next month, when it was time to do the column, I didn't do it. And Lon called me up and he said, "How come you're not doing it?" I said, "I didn't like being edited." And he said, "Okay." He says, "No, you will not be edited from here on out." So that was part of it. And reminded me another thing. We did. I did several things comparing OS 9 level 1 to Flex.
Yeah, I remember those.
And comparing OS 9 to Flex, Flex wins. Flex was a better operating system for the color computer without level 2 OS 9. And I wrote about that extensively, which was a problem for Rainbow because Tandy was a big customer of theirs, and they didn't particularly like it. Well, so Tandy comes out with, level 2. It's a whole different thing. And I was at a Coco Fest, and the guys from Rainbow, names I can't remember, they said, "Well, now will you admit you're wrong about OS 9? And I said, "No, I was right about OS 9. You came out with OS 9 level 2. It's an entirely different thing, so I was right. This is a different operating system, just called the same thing." So I had run-ins with everyone at one time or another. It was probably to my detriment. I had problems with Lonnie about, I don't even remember what it was, but there was one Rainbow Fest. So I decided not to go, not to show at it. But I did a Rainbow Fest special as an ad. And I went to the Rainbow Fest and I walked around and I was telling everybody, "Boy, this is a great idea of mine. I'm making more money without doing this show than if I had done the show," which was not true, but and after that, whatever differences Lonnie and I had, they got ironed out. So
I do remember the OS 9 versus Flex, and to be honest, I think you were right too. Level 1 OS 9 is too restrictive. You're kind of crippled. You just don't have the resources.
And it's too big.
Yeah. And you can fit much bigger, larger, better programs under Flex. And then when level 2 came out with windowing and everything else, you were pardon the expression, whole hog into it.
Whole hog. Well, we had level 2. We had level 2. We had Sculptor. We had all these other, things that would only run on level 2. So we were, I was ready to go with it.
You had WizTerm, and by Bill Brady, you had Sculptor, which was like professional grade level software, required 512K to run. And then you also came up with some hardware, like Bruce I said, helped design, I think, the Eliminator, which I still have, which is like a big multi-IO board beyond anything else I've seen before or since.
You haven't told him that you still have a Tomcat.
Yeah, no, I still have my Tomcat.
Well, they
I've
were
got to
very,
replace the
very,
hard drive in it, but
we only did 25 of those, and it was basically the pilot run. I had about 500 orders for the thing, pre-orders, and I'm proud to say that I never cashed anybody's check or charged a credit card, which I know some other companies can't say. And I held on to all the orders as we were developing it. One of the big delays, about 6 weeks, which is really a killer delay, was I was having memory overheating problems. We had 4 banks of SIMs in the normal configuration you have, and they were running within a few degrees of their limit. And I thought it was our design. Now today, if you had a problem like that, you could put a fan on it, but back then you didn't do that sort of thing. Putting a fan on it to cool something down was considered poor design. But it took 6 weeks or 2 months to figure out that the reason the memory was running hot was because of the design of the gimmick. It was designed that way, and then once I realized that it wasn't our design, I could go ahead with production. But the orders by that time, there wasn't 500 anymore, and there wasn't enough to warrant going into full production. Although, if I had more money, I would do it. But I was also running out of cash too at that time, because it was an expensive proposition doing that. So you have a very
plus you're
rare...
doing the TC70 at the same time too, and the
Yeah,
K-bus stuff, and
Yeah, and I wasn't financing that stuff. Hazelwood Computers was building the stuff, and we worked on the design together. But trying to get color computer people to buy OS 9 68000 stuff was a tough sell. And when Tandy discontinued the color computer, actually they told me that, I said, we've never trademarked Coco, and I should have taken that as a hint and trademarked it, because I was getting competition from people that were calling that what they had was a Coco 4, and I could have stopped that. The only Coco that anyone could build would be one with a gimme chip, and I bought every one that Radio Shack had. There weren't any ones available that I didn't have, so I was the only one who could actually make a Coco 4. But there was competitors that were claiming they could, or they would emulate it or do this, that, or the other thing. And I was getting calls from people, will your TC9 do what so-and-so claims theirs will do? And at that point, what was I going to say? Well, no, ours won't do that. Neither will theirs, so there's a customer who's going to buy either one,
How did you come up with the name Tomcat?
Well, there's an airplane.
Yeah.
Called the Tomcat airplane. And I was driving to work one day, and it just popped into my head, and I thought, that's a cool name, to come up with. I was struggling to try to find a name. Well, like the QT, I was out, I think it was in Des Moines, and there's some kind of business out there called QT. And I looked out the hotel window. I looked at it, I saw QT, the Quad Terminal. That's a cool name for the QT. So that's how that name came about. So Tomcat, TC, those were the names. I thought they were okay names. I wish I had trademark Coco, then I could have called them a Coco 4. And actually, the original TC9 was not what you got.
No.
No, if I had been smarter, I would have I made the original one was a single board computer. It was basically, I took everything that you could currently have in a color computer. The 512K RAM. It had the 4 SIM cards on it. It had the keyboard interface. It had stuff in there for the hard drive interface, everything, and it was in a pancake PC case. That would have sold really, really well because it ran color computer stuff. It had a ROM slot so you could plug in the ROM things. Everybody that had games and stuff, which I was never into, could have plugged in and do it. But I made the mistake of letting the competition from MM1 sway me into doing the TC9 that we ended up doing. If I had done the original one, I could have got it out months sooner, and it probably would have sold in much better quantity than the TC9 would have sold, because it would have been basically a Coco 4. It would have been kind of what Tandy would have come out with.
Yeah, Frank, my understanding of it was with the TC9, it was actually a card that went into a bus.
Yeah, the K-bus.
Yeah, okay, the K-bus. So was the K-bus something that was compatible with the MM1?
No.
Okay.
MM1 was a entirely different thing.
Okay.
We had actually Mike Smith at Hazelwood Computers came up with the K-bus, and they were making cards that plugged into it. So he made the TC70 so it would plug into the K bus, and then the TC9 had the interface, but it never actually plugged into a K bus. Never did anything more with it than put the pins on the edge of the card. Did you ever do anything with it, Chris?
We were talking with Bob Puppo about doing it because he had some. Because I think he helped you design the TC9, if I remember correctly. But he had some specific interrupt places that he was actually going to have it so you could like put something on the bus and tell the K bus, I've got some stuff available for you, and you can make requests back and forth. So we had a kind of a protocol done for it, but Bill and I never had a K bus to try it with. So no, we didn't either. Grant, do you have the Tomcat brochure? Because you might as well put it up while we're talking about it. You can kind of show some of the K bus cards, because K bus was actually a card slot system that actually supported 6 to 8000 to the 6 to 8000 and 20 and 30, and it had serial port cards and parallel port cards and the TC9.
Is that like a bus?
No, this is like a 16-bit bus, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
It's a full 16-bit bus.
Oh, okay.
Or even 32. I can't even remember. Do you remember, Frank?
No,
I never had one, so I don't really know for sure. So.
Yesterday is a challenge, Going back that far, no. A lot of it's coming back as you guys talk.
The TC70, was that that was similar to the TC9? It was just a 68,000.
68,070.
Yeah. Okay.
So it used the same chip that the MM1 used, or the MM1 used the same chip that whichever. I think the MM1 came first, but I had talked to them. They wanted me to come on board with that, but I looked at that, and it was a computer and software system that was designed by a committee. And I didn't think that would ever work, because whenever you get, a committee involved, you run into all these, I want to do it this way, I want to do it that way. And from what I heard at the time, there was one guy, I can't remember his name, who was doing the board design, the hardware design.
Kevin Pease?
I don't remember. I remember.
He was one guy who designed the original MM1, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Along with Paul Ward. Oh, there we go. There's the TC10 brochure.
Yeah. He was bitching about something that they were, wanting him to do that couldn't be done. So that sort of thing, when you have so many cooks, you can't get anything really done. You have to have someone that's going to make a decision and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and do it, right or wrong. And that was one of the mistakes I made. I tried to do too much, and it took too long to do it. And that's what I say. I should have come out with that first Coco 4, and that was, doing, and it would have sold in the thousands, I think. And then work on things like the TT70 and let the MM1 guys, do their thing. I don't know how well that ended up selling.
I think everybody had problems. All the Coco 4s, quote unquote, had problems because of the limited market and unlimited resources. I mean, you guys weren't all big companies, so. No,
and the market was dwindling extremely fast. Once,
it was standardizing on PCs and like Windows PCs and Macs at that point already.
Yeah,
the Amigas were dying off too. It wasn't just you guys.
Yeah. Once if you had a color computer and you weren't in the business, or you weren't an avid guy, and Tandy drops the thing, and you're in the market to buy a new computer, you want to get something now. You don't want to wait for a year or however long it took. And it just took me too long to get it done. And if I had, of course, people say, what would I do different? I had to do it over again. I said, well, I'd buy, next week's lottery ticket and save all this hassle. If I had that kind of precognition, I just wasn't that smart, but at the time I did what I did, because and I don't second guess myself as far as whether that was a mistake or not. It was just what I did based on what was happening back then. And this is weird. I'm looking at myself, but there's a delay.
Don't let it bother you.
No, I shouldn't look at myself, because I'm trying to match my lips to what I'm saying, or what I said a minute ago.
Yeah, there was so many reasons why at the end the Tandy decided to, kill the color computer. You had the Radio Shack management wanting to say, hey, we make more money off the Tandy 1000 series and its software. Why do we still keep this thing around? And the other thing, too, was on the software development end, we were starting to have to buy liability software for Tandy because somebody made some software for the Tandy 1000 that uses somebody's patented code and they didn't pay for the license. And Tandy got sued. So now developers were having to carry $1 million licenses for Tandy, and the cost of that license or that insurance was the same price that Tandy was willing to pay for the software in the first place. So you could make you could not make any money selling for, you know, the $20 game. It just there's no profit module there or model. So there was a lot of things that came at the end that killed the Coco. And you know, and let's put it this way, some people were admired by the Amiga. You know, they loved that machine, and then the PC and the Mac, and yeah, the whole industry changed.
Yeah, well, you know, it's an interesting piece of information. I didn't have that. I didn't know what that was the reason of it.
Yeah.
But
well, the basically with Inside Tandy, the PC version, the Tandy 1000, they've been trying to kill off the Coco for a couple of years before it died. And one of the demos they did, I think I mentioned this once before, is they took the Rampage for Coco and the Rampage for the PC, you know, their Tandy 1000, and they had a meeting set up with the higher execs and they're showing it off, and the guys from the Tandy 1000 kept going, look how great this thing is. It's got beautiful colors. It plays just like the arcade and it sounds great and like that. And then Barry Thompson says, you do realize you're pointing to the Coco monitor, not the PC. So Arkanoid gave, actually not Arkanoid, but Rampage gave the Coco another year.
Well, I thank him for that. It was good at the time.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you, Frank, on the TC9, like the very first ads that came out for it were mentioning that you'd get a machine that was literally 33% faster using, I believe, a clock doubler circuit like Sockmaster's posted since. And I think that was a Bob Puppo thing too. But I think you hit the same problem that Paul Barton and a few others have done trying to do it, is that every single gimme isn't quite the same. And, you know, the timing would work on some boards and it wouldn't work on others. And I think Bill and I actually talked to you about it at some fest, but you guys were having tremendous problems trying to get that to work. And then you finally abandoned it just because it wasn't worth the effort. You were had to tweak every board or something.
Plus, I couldn't get any technical information about the gimme because that belonged to Tandy, and Tandy wouldn't give it up. So everything we knew about it was what you guys knew about it. You know, it tried to reverse engineer from the outside. Looking at it, as I said about the memory overheating problem, there was a lot of problems with it that made it difficult. And I'm not an engineer. I came up with a concept, and then someone else builds it and someone else designs it. For example, we did a quad terminal thing, which was a 68,000 computer with 4 serial ports and 2 parallel ports. And that was built into a hard drive case at the time. It had the hard drive case. I got them from a company already done. The only thing they had to remake was the back of it. And I was talking to Mike Smith, who designed the hardware. And I said, Mike, we can put another 4 serial ports on this thing. And he was, what are you going to do that? And I said, well, I can put my hand behind the hard drive and the floppy down, you know, in there. And if I can get my hand in there, then we can get another board in there. And so he designed a board with 4 more serial ports and 2 more parallel ports. And so that became an 8-user computer in the size of an external hard drive case. And I sold one to a company. I don't remember the company's name, but they bought it and called me up and they said, where's the computer? All we got is a hard drive case. And I said, well, that is the computer. called me back a few days later, and they had a meeting with all of their engineers. They took the top off this thing, and they were amazed at how much managed to get stuffed in there. And Mike Smith gets the credit for that, and I had some part of it, but none of the design of it, and we sold a number of those. That was quite unusual, to have that much power in it. So
Did that have a name or a number?
a QT, I forget, maybe a QT8 or something. I don't really remember what we called it. It was just an add-on board, but we sold a number of them. I don't think we sold the add-on board itself separately. We could have, we might have. It was a little tricky assembling it because the serial ports themselves were on. We used a RS-232 part. It was a wire wrap part in order to get the length of the pins, because it sat off the board about an inch in order to get around the other RS-232 ports that were already on the back of the computer. So it was an interesting thing. I never saw one anywhere near that small that had that much capability. And the fact that it worked was surprising. Mike Smith designed the first board to fit on to a floppy drive, the pinout or a hard drive, where the pinout was you could mount it right onto a hard drive, and it was a single board computer. And he contacted me with it, and I said, yeah, we can do that. And I contacted the guys that made our cases, because we were buying cases for external drives and stuff, and told them what we wanted to do. And they took one of the cases that they had and made up a new back panel that had the RS-232 cutouts in it. And that's how that came about. Then Gimmicks, after that was called GMX, they came out with, it was a 68020 on one of those boards. That same size board. That thing was packed tight. And we sold that for a little bit of time, but he was kind of upset with me. He wanted me to not sell Hazelwood stuff. He wanted me to just sell Gimmick stuff. And, Hazelwood stuff was selling better than Gimmick stuff, so I wasn't going to stop selling once it was selling good, just to appease Don. So I'm getting off subject probably, but that's how that all came about.
I was just going to ask you too, the Mike Smith that helped you design it, is that the same Mike Smith that did OmniBasic for OS9? Or is that a different Mike Smith?
Mike Smith is that a compiler?
Yeah, it's basically a Basic 09 style compiler.
Yeah, I forgot what the name of it was. Yeah, he did that. He wrote that. He's since passed away, but he was quite an interesting character.
Yeah, I used to be on the phone with him a lot, because when he was doing OmniBasic, we used it at work. And actually, Bill and I were helping him debug it. So we'd send bug reports and stuff, and he'd send back a recompiled version of it. So we were on the phone some Fridays, like for 4 hours a night, chatting about anything but computers half the time. But he was a very interesting guy to talk to.
Yes, he is a character. He grew his own tobacco.
Yep.
When you go back to Flex, if you didn't license Flex, you could buy maybe the developer's copy, or you could buy Flex from TSC for like $150 or something, and it was just a generic Flex disk. And what Mike and Dave, I'm trying to remember Dave's last name, escaping me at the moment. What they did was they put drivers in the ROM so that it would boot up this generic Flex disk, and he could run Flex on his computer, and he didn't have to buy a license from TSC. Well, that pissed off Don at the Gimmicks, and he was trying to get TSC to do so. Well, they're not buying a license, they shouldn't have this, and so on and so forth. Don was a character. We were selling some stuff overseas, exporting some computers. And I was using a export service where you send a computer to them, and then they had all of the export license stuff, and then they would send it off to the customer. And that cost the customer an extra $100. So we were trying to get an export license from the government. You want to talk about jumping through hoops. Alex, who was running that, he had 2 or 3 yellow legal pads written of all these calls he was making to all these people to try to get this license, and it was, and after a while, it's out of hell with it. I'm sorry we're having to charge people $100, but, we gave it our best shot. And Then one day we got a knock on the door, and it was three guys from the government. Trying to figure what department, the federal government, that handles that. And I didn't know them from a bag of assholes. They came in, and one guy had a gold badge, which meant absolutely nothing to me, you know. And when they came, I was pissed off because I had just like earlier that day had told Alex, just forget it. So I was ticked off at the government. So this guy comes in. I thought he was from that section who was going to give us this license. So I went up one side of him and down the other about how hard, no wonder no one can export stuff, you know, and we have a trade deficit when you guys make it damn near impossible to do all this sort of stuff. And he was quite shocked. And he said, well, can I see your record? Oh, sure, go ahead. And Carol was the office manager. As Carol, let them see whatever they want, you know, and I kind of dismissed them because I wasn't going to follow through with it. Well, I was talking to Mike Smith sometime after that, and I related this to him, and he was shocked. He said, you don't know who those guys were? And I said, no, I thought, you know, I didn't know anything about it. He said, well, you know, you get a guy with a gold badge, that's some big wig, you know. They came and saw me. They were investigating you because Don at Gimmicks had claimed that I was shipping stuff overseas without an export license. So the government was investigating me, and they went out to Mike's place and swore him to secrecy. And he was all nervous and shook up about the whole thing. You know, that was going to go to jail. And when I was relating this thing to him about how I was berating this guy with his gold badge, he was going, oh my God, you didn't do that. I didn't know who it was. So I had a little bit of humor there, you know. But never did bother getting an export license. It was, you know, that was the end of that. So,
Well, they were probably from the Department of Commerce. My wife used to work for them.
yeah, that sounds reasonable. It's a long time ago, but
She was involved in the export division, and she spent a lot of time doing training seminars for corporations so they figure out what they could do with exporting stuff and like that. And yes, there is a lot of red tape, and every time there's a new administration, it gets worse.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Just add more layers.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Mike was quite the character, though. I'm glad you brought him up there because I haven't thought about him in a while because he passed away, I think, in 97, 98 or something. It's been quite a while already.
yeah.
He was just in the midst of making a new version of OmniBasic too. He'd sent me the very first alpha. He was switching, like he'd switched over to doing it based in C++. He'd made it cross-platform with Linux and Windows. Found out that people in Linux and Windows didn't want to pay for it, so he's going back to doing it native assembly. Sent the very first alpha that had just, you know, the very basics of it working, and it was running really fast compared to his previous versions. And then I got a call from one of the other people at whatever the company was that was selling OmniBasic at the end there, and saying, you know, he suddenly had a heart attack and he passed away, so this product's dead. They were trying to find somebody else to take over for a while, but they never did find anyone, unfortunately.
I wasn't in contact with him, you know, at that point in time, so I didn't find out he died until sometime afterward. When was it he died?
I think it was 97 or 98. I'd have to go check. I haven't thought about it in a while, but yeah, I'd literally been on the phone with him literally 2 weeks before he passed away.
Oh, wow. It was a heart attack, because I always wondered if it was from his cigarettes, which he claimed were not a problem if you grew your own, you know, and of course he would go on and on about how the tobacco companies were lacing the tobacco with all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. I remember those Friday night phone conversations for 4 hours. He was just chain smoke. You could hear him lighting up the next one like 3 minutes later, and it just kept going forward.
Yeah, he was a character. His wife did all the boards, soldered all the boards, and matter of fact, the TC70 they hand soldered the CPU, which was a chip designed to be surface mount. And I never could figure out how he could solder those things. They're so tiny, but he managed to do it. So,
one question I wanted
Lots of flux.
One question I wanted to ask you, like over the years, you know, in Coco stuff and the TC9, TC70 stuff, you worked with a lot of people that are, you know, semi-common names in the Coco community, like Bob Puppo, your nephew Rich, Bruce Eisted. I'm just trying to think, and Michael Smith. Is there any other names that you would like to bring up that are instrumental for your company that we may not?
That's a tough one because my memory is not that good. I'm 73. I'm going on 90, I think. But
You mentioned Peter Dibble.
Peter Dibble,
Dale Puckett, I guess you mentioned.
Dale Puckett, yeah. I'm friends with Dale on Facebook, so he's still kicking.
Are you going to try and encourage them to come on here?
I hadn't even given it a thought.
Yes, you need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in contact with him on Facebook too. I should ask him actually.
Yes.
Yeah, there you
He's
go.
on Twitter on Ham Nation all the time. So
Yeah, we'll put
Right.
this big puzzle together
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
like as far as your
know,
core group at Frank Hogg Labs itself, who were your main hardware designers, or was that kind of subcontracted out? Or
Okay. Well, if someone came up with something, like you were talking about the expander, I think that was, I forget who was it that did that, or no.
oh, Bruce the Eliminator one.
Yeah, the Eliminator one. Yeah. People would come to me with stuff, whether it was software or hardware that they would be doing, and would you sell this for us, that sort of thing. Like there was one company that came out with a keyboard, and they came into the office and picked my brain for a while and came out with it themselves. And I called them. I said, "Geez, you could at least send me one for free for the afternoon." Took up, which reluctantly they did. But that's how things would happen. Someone would come up with something and would look at it, and if it seemed like it would sell, we would do it. Some things didn't sell. We did a robot. I'm trying to remember the name of that thing. The Nomad.
Right from Star Trek.
Yeah, it was a little thing to hook up the color computer. It would wander around and had a IR thing to map where it was going, and it would create a map on the color computer of a room and stuff. But it had to be hooked up by wire, and it was expensive. I think it was $150, and so it never sold. I think we sold one or two, and I finally ended up selling them at cost to get my investment back, and that was. And I personally honest, I learned after a while that as a matter of fact, it was a lesson that IBM didn't learn initially, was that when you look at the product, if you wouldn't buy it, like I would say to myself, if this was on the market, would I buy it? And if the answer came back no, then the question you have to ask yourself is, why the hell would anyone else buy it? And IBM came out with the PC Junior with a chiclet keyboard. And this is the company that invented the Selectric typewriter, the keyboard that everybody else was emulating, and they came out with this piece of crap chiclet. And I remember reading a quote from one of the IBM honchos saying, "Well, this is for them," So it exemplified that question. Would you buy it if it was available? No, he wouldn't. And IBM ended up giving everybody who bought a PC Junior a real keyboard for free. So once I started asking myself that question, if this was available, would I buy it? I came a little more particular about what kind of things I would take on. When we started selling Sculptor, which was a database, you could create business programs, and we started using that to do invoices and stuff. That was right when OPAC came out, and we had a ton of orders for it, and the girls were typing them up by hand. And Sculptor came in, and I played around with it for one evening or maybe a day or two, and I went in and told her, I said, stop typing invoices. I can do this with Sculptor, and we could have the computer print all the invoices, which I did, because there was, 1,500 or something orders, and type 1,500 invoices. It took a lot of time. So that was the first thing using Sculptor. And that gave me a database. I could look at sales numbers, how many of this we're selling and how many of that we're selling. And I found out a lot of stuff that we were getting a lot of calls on. People weren't buying. We weren't making sales. So we started to weed out some of the products that were in the catalog, just to cut down the effort of you couldn't market it. People, they had such limited appeal. I couldn't tell you what any of them are now, but probably half of the things that we had in the catalog weren't selling at all. Maybe one or two. So got a little more particular after that. But that was getting towards the end.
Yeah. Did you do much in-house hardware and or software development, like with your actual employees, or did you usually just, bring in stuff from the outside as they approached you?
The only thing I did in-house was, I would, we did some rack-mounted computers, custom computers, and I did those. But I didn't do any boards. I never, made any circuit boards or anything like that, other than the TC9. but I farmed all of that out to other people. All the TC9, the TC9 you have, that was all done by us. And, I had a couple people working that soldered up all the boards, and I think one of them was adding. There's wires on the bottom of it. You might have noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of them was adding those, and all of them ended up working. Now, there wasn't one of them that didn't work. But by that time, money was so tight that I didn't keep one of them for myself. That was $500 a pop. So we sold every one of them, and then, spent several days mailing back checks to people that had ordered them with an apology letter. And sorry, we're not going to go through with this. Because at that time, I don't know what the numbers were, 100, maybe 125. And at 500, even at $500, it wasn't profitable. It had to be 500 or more in order to make any money on it. You couldn't just do a 100 board run and have a profit on it. So that's why it stopped. That's why it ended. But the real problem was the time delay. If I had gotten it out sooner, it would have made all the difference in the world. We were probably losing, every week I would say we would lose 10 or 15 or 20 orders for it, people that would cancel. And so that 2-month delay because of the heat, I think, was the major thing that killed it. Because that dropped it down below 500 significantly. And I think we only had maybe 100 or 150 live orders for it. And if I had the money, and it would have taken a lot to go into production and make them and hope that more people would buy them afterwards, I would have given that a shot. But I just didn't have it.
Did you ever consider bringing other people in to invest? Yeah.
And I talked to some people, but they looked at the numbers and said it's just not there. The same numbers I looked at. It was a gamble.
Now, at this time, where people started buying PCs, right? And,
PCs or Macs. I don't know what they ended up with, but they got out of the color computer.
Right, but did you ever consider, keeping your business and doing PC?
I never liked the. I always thought MS-DOS was a piece of crap, and I thought Windows was a piece of crap until they, I was using Macs, and I bought the first Mac in '84, and I don't know when Windows came out with something that was usable, but I never liked that product line at all.
95.
Well, what did you think of the Hackintoshes that came out later on?
That was actually, I looked into doing one of those, building one of those, and I thought, this is too much work for too little reward myself. And I wasn't that much of a hacker by then. I was kind of burned out from the the TC9 experience. I'd closed up the computer business and I'd gone back into my profession, which is a dental laboratory. By the way, a little aside on that, back when it was called Frank Hogg Dental Laboratory, a number of people thought that wasn't really a dental laboratory, because if you remember, there was Dr. Dobbs' journal, Orthopedia and whatever, and they thought it was, we were copying Dr. Dobbs, this little quirky name. No, we're really a dental laboratory. So I went back into that and did that until I retired here about 10 years ago. And
so as overall looking back, would you have changed anything, or?
Yeah, I would have bought a lottery ticket. Yeah. Well, if you want to, the problem that we had was we had, I'll name names. MM1, Paul Ward was making claims about what the MM1 was going to do. They were going to have a Coco 3 or whatever emulator board. They were going to do this. And they had all of these claims that I didn't, you cannot do back then. You could not do an emulator with Coco 3 without a gimme. And I had all the gimmies. So those claims were BS as far as I was concerned. But the problem was someone who was looking for an upgrade to a color computer they would either talk to him or read the claims, and then they would call me and say, will your computer do what they say theirs will do? And because I don't lie, I said no, and neither will theirs. And as a consequence, that customer went away and didn't buy either one. So that was a problem for me. And if I had bigger balls, I would have just said, oh, screw them. I'm going to come out with a Coco 4 on that single board that I originally came up with. We actually had a prototype board made, and I showed it at one of the Coco Fests. It was a non-working prototype, but it had all the the layout of everything, so you could see where we were headed with it. You could plug in a ROM cartridge. That made enormous difference. If you couldn't plug in a ROM cartridge, you cut your market down dramatically, because so many color computer users, played games with their ROM cartridges. And that was, if you didn't have a ROM cartridge, you probably cut your potential market down by 90%, maybe even more. So that first one had a ROM cartridge slot. It had all this other stuff, all these upgrades that you would put into the thing, and it was in this nice little package without all this crap hanging off on the side, That would have sold really well. So
that's what you think you should have
if I had done that,
concentrated on.
I would have made a lot of money on that. We would have sold thousands of those, and just ignored the fact of let the MM1 guys do their thing. And say, yeah, well, we're doing a Coco 4 that actually is a Coco 4. So I would have trademarked Coco, which would have prevented anyone from using that term, and saying, well, ours is the Coco 4. There were, I think Delmar was.
Yeah, the PD68K4 was their Coco 4, which is basically an OSK machine.
Hey, did you know that? Did you know that Tandy actually used the word Coco in an ad?
They told me that they had not trademarked Coco. In effect, told me, Frank, go trademark Coco.
Mm-hmm.
At one of the last Coco Fests, a couple of guys there made it a point to tell me that, and I should have been smart enough to do it.
Well, the ad I'm speaking of is a French one.
Oh,
it isn't even in English. They use the word Coco for Coco 2. Yeah.
No, well, if I had trademarked that, then no one else would have been able to claim that they had a Coco 4, because I would have trademarked Coco and Coco 4 and Coco 5, all these variants of the thing, and that would have prevented anyone from making that claim, and that would have dramatically reduced the confusion in the market, because the consumers would look at this and say, "Oh, this is a Coco 4 and that's a Coco 4. Which one is the real Coco 4?"
Yeah.
And
you would think it would come from Tandy,
right? Yeah. So, but that's que sera. I've made a lot of boneheaded decisions in my life, and at the time, knowing what I knew at the time and my background, I wasn't so much in the color computer as I was into 68,000. I was more into OS9 level 2 and all that. So that's kind of where I was going, and we were selling TC70 computers. They were selling pretty well, and so I talked to Mike about it, and I said, well, let's work out how we can tie what you've got with the K bus. You got all these other cards, and I can do this TC9 to work with the K bus, and that's the way I go. And all that sort of things that delayed getting the product out. And what we've all learned when you're doing hardware, you don't announce the product until you've got it ready to ship. Until you're selling it. You look at Apple, and they'll announce something, and you can order it today or order it next Monday for first deliveries the week afterwards. Back then, people were announcing stuff months in advance, and it killed Adam Osborne, not physically, but it killed the Osborne market, because people just stopped buying his computer, and he didn't have the money to actually come out with the executive. So, but none of us knew those lessons back then. We were all neophytes and learning how to do these things.
Now, did you ever see the Coco 4 that's in the Coco book? The one that looks like a Coco 1 white with a box on it and a floppy on it?
No.
You ever seen that?
No, I never. As a matter of fact, I actually, when I got the book, I just read the part about me. They didn't read it.
I
So
was
you're making sure that part's accurate.
So you're a diehard, aren't you?
yeah. I was scolded. I guess is kind of too strong of a word, but I was told on the Facebook, a guy named Mike Siegel.
Mark Siegel, yeah, he's from Tandy. He's one of the main Coco
Mark,
guys.
Yeah. I posted a picture of that, and I because we were talking about possible Coco 4s, and he said that was some sort of educational thing, and was never a prototype Coco 4. But I don't know, because I thought the picture got passed around the forum, and that's what it was kind of billed as. But
it
then
had a nameplate on there that said Coco 4.
Yeah, and well, that's what he was trying to tell me, that he knew more than me, and he worked for Tandy, so I'm not gonna tell him he's wrong.
The guys in your I don't know, let's say group or whatever, some of the stuff that people came up with was quite interesting. Someone, I don't have any idea who it was, maybe you would recognize it, had taken a color computer and made it portable. Put a tiny little screen.
Frank Swigert.
Who?
Frank Swigert. He did World of 6 to 8 Micros, a kind of a newsletter / magazine in the 90s.
Yeah.
He used to take it to the fest too.
Yeah.
He had a little wooden box or whatever it was in, and he would just lug it around with his screen and his keyboard.
I had a Coco 2 in my truck. I had hooked up electric to it and made it work in my van.
Yeah, Boise did that too. He called his a Toyota because he had it in his Toyota.
That's right. I remember seeing pictures of that. It was red, wasn't it? Red.
Yeah, he had OS9 on ROM, and it would actually monitor some of the stuff from the truck computer, if I remember correctly.
I actually had the idea of taking like a Raspberry Pi and gutting out a laptop. And the thing I was wondering how to do would be how to connect the keyboard from the laptop to USB, so you could punch it into the Raspberry Pi, and then you could emulate the Coco. Batteries already in it to run the Coco or the Raspberry Pi, and the display and everything. So you could kind of make a laptop Coco pretty easily.
Anymore, if you think of something, you can do it.
Yeah.
That's the way it is working these days.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the SDC that we're using, Frank?
STC, I'm not familiar with. No.
Yeah, we have a device you stick in the cartridge port, and it has an SD card filled with all of everybody's software from time immemorial.
Well, I expect a check in the mail then. Don't send it, because then I'd have to send out royalties to whoever.
Hey, Frank, as you look back at some of these projects and things that you worked on, is there anything that you're most proud of?
Well, that's a tough question. Most proud of, gosh, that's really the wrong word for me to say. It wasn't. It was more accidental than on purpose. So I don't see how you could be proud of something that happened by accident.
Yeah, but you had a laboratory, and it sounded and you presented yourself as though you were a large factory somewhere.
Well, it was the name of the business. Frank Hogg Dental Laboratory was the name of the business. And I think the thing I was probably most noted for, the people most remember about, was the fact that I used girls in my ads. Back then, nobody was doing that.
That is true.
Yeah, they were all very dry and stuff. And this girl, I wish I could remember her name. I had my business in a large office building called Midtown Plaza, and the girl that's in the color on back of Rainbow magazine in the negligee, she was working for one of the dentists, and she had herself made up, and she was a dead ringer for Farrah Fawcett, who was all the stuff back then. And Dale Puckett, as a matter of fact, might be able to relate to this because of him. I knew this girl was in the building, but the guy that was working her with the name of Dave wasn't aware of it. On Friday, we would normally quit at 1:00. So it was like 5 minutes to 1, and Dale was there taking pictures. He'd been there for 3 or 4 days because he used the dental lab as his project for his classwork that he was doing at SU, and basically making a pain in the ass of himself because he'd come right up to your face, and stand like this and take, it's like everybody was pretty much had it with Dale by the end of the week came around, and Dale came and he says, "Oh, geez," he says, "I don't have a beginning for my story. I've taken pictures of all the girls here, and I need someone, for a beginning. And do you know anyone in the building that you could get?" I said, "Well, I could probably go across the hall. One of the girls that work in the dental office would come over to it." And I went over there, and they were out to lunch. Like I said, it was just before noon. The cafeteria was just down the hall. I went down there. And one of the girls that worked there was there, and this girl that looked like Farrah Fawcett was working there too, as an assistant. So I said, "Geez, I asked the girl I knew, would you come?" And she says, "No, but she would go, So she came with me. So picture Dave. Dave is, ticked off, ready to go, and he said, "Will you hurry up? I've got an appointment to make, So I go out, and 5 minutes later, I come back in with a girl that looked like Farrah Fawcett, and she was as tall as I was. She was like 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that. Gorgeous, gorgeous girl, And Dave looked at me like, "Where the hell did you come from?" And so I come in with it, and I said, "Oh, okay, Dave, you can go now. You don't have to hang around anymore." And he farted around. He was there for 15 or 20 minutes while Dale took the picture to, the beginning of his story. Well, she wanted to be a model. She was looking to be a model. So when I was looking for someone to take pictures with with the computers, I contacted her. And this, the genesis of that picture that's on the back cover, the color picture, was I wanted. I talked to her and I said, "Well, it's going to come out in the spring, so it would be nice to have like a spring dress on, So she, to the photographer, so she brought stuff that she had, but everything she had was a little too wild, She didn't have any girl next door spring dresses, So I said, "Well, let's go out to the shopping center. Maybe we can find something." So we go out, and this is probably an early afternoon or something. We go out to this big department store. And so here I am with this girl that looks like Farrah Fawcett. I'm this old geezer, probably 45 or something like that at the time, and she was probably 19 or something. And we're looking for a dress. So we couldn't find anything because it was too early. So we said, "Well, what about a negligee? Maybe we can get a negligee that looks nice." So she's trying on these negligees, and she's going into the dress room, and she came on to, "What do you think this? How about this?" And all these women.
2 days later.
Giving me these dirty looks, like, "You dirty old man." So we finally bought one, and if you look closely in the picture, we forgot to take the label off it. I don't know where it is in the picture, but somewhere there's the label from the thing. And that's what we used. That was a negligee. Well, she was completely covered and everything. It was nothing compared to what you see today. But back then, that was, like I say, something I was probably most noted for. It was the most fun thing. Although I could never stay for the photo shoots. The photographers always kicked me out. The model would be intimidated if I was there, and I'm thinking to myself, "You dirty old man." So, and they would, send me, 50 or 100 proofs to look at, pick one out, and that's how we did that. But I got more comments from people about that. And the other thing I did at the time, I was at one of the early Coco Fests and talking to the guy that was in charge of the color computer. I forget his name, but I asked him what his demographic was, and we were at the back of one of the rooms. Someone was giving a talk, and there's probably 1,000 people in the room. And he says, "Well, look around, a 30-year-old white male." And, he's right. That's what the demographic was for the color computer market and for my market. So I figured that it would be better to have females answering the phone than males, as far as taking orders and stuff. The guys would be more likely to spend money if females. And when we started doing the ads with the girls in it, one of the questions guys would ask the car, "Are you the one in the ad?" So that that was all planned. I figured that everybody's a dirty old man to some degree, but
So did you have 68-year-olds answering the phone?
no, they were all. Helene was the oldest one and she wasn't working for me at the time we really got into it, but she was probably mid-30s or something like that. All the other girls were in their 20s, and I forget how many there were, 8 or 9, or something like that. That's interesting, being the only guy in an office with all women. I highly recommend you don't do it.
Well, we don't seem to have any women on the show ever.
Well,
I wonder why.
Well, the demographic is now 60-year-old white men.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't do it again. Of course, if I was younger, I might, try something like that. But all of these lessons you learn, they're very expensive, and once you learn them, it's too late. But the computer industry back then was very young, and everybody was making the same mistakes, and everybody thought it was going to go on forever. That was just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then of course it all fell through, and then the .com revolution came, and the same pundits that were saying it was going to go on and on forever said the same thing about the .com thing, and the same thing happened. And I've noticed pundits are good at predicting things. They don't have to be right. They can be wrong and still keep their jobs.
Yeah, they just need to get clicks.
Yeah. It was a fun time, and I'm enjoying rehashing some of this old stuff. But what I was most proud of, that's a tough one. I think just the tight end that was in the right place at the right time to catch the ball, and then I was smart enough, to see it, but not smart enough to take 100% advantage of it. If I really knew what was going on in the market, I didn't know. When we came out with that 64K for free column, I had no idea what the color computer people were doing. I hadn't kept up with it, because I was never a gamer. And so it came as a complete surprise to me what happened. And if I had, like I say, I'd probably put 5 or 10 grand on the table by not having 64K chips to sell. Because that's, people would run that basic program, they need 1 or 2 chips, and they called me, to get them, and we didn't have them. And it got so busy that there was no time to go look for them. It was a crazy time.
Speaking of the time and stuff there, when the Coco 1 and 2 was starting to run down a little bit by the time the Coco 3 came out, between 85, 86, did you see a resurgence when the Coco 3 came out and you started supporting OS9 Level 2, or did the market basically stay the same size? Or
boy, I wish I could remember. We were doing well. We did well with Flex. We did well with OS9, because we had stuff ready to go, and it didn't matter to me if they were buying Flex software or OS9 software. We had both stuff, and a lot of guys that wrote stuff for Flex, it was the same thing would run on OS9. I think Stylus was one of them. Did it run on Flex end?
Yeah, there was a few Stylograph and Stylus and stuff.
Yeah. And we were a dealer for him, if you will, and he had his own company. I don't remember if there was much difference. I think it was probably better when the Coco 3 came out on OS9 Level 2, because that made it more legitimate. It wasn't something you had to modify in order to run our software. We were limited with, people that could wire, modify their computers. So when you could go and buy something off the shelf that would run the stuff that we were selling, it made a big difference. So I did well for quite a number of years. And the only thing, I made millions of dollars, and the only problem with it was I spent millions of dollars too.
The math was a little off. Yeah.
Yeah. Buy stock, save. Nah, this is going to go on forever. It's never going to. And then, shit, it ended.
Is it Nick that talks about his Ferrari or something? Or
multiple Ferraris.
Yeah.
They're little Matchbox ones, but still.
Oh, geez. So
One last question I'll ask you on Coco related stuff. When Kevin Darling and the rest of them were working on the level 2 upgrade, which was officially sanctioned by Tandy and Microware at the time until Tandy canceled it right when they were just about getting done, I know he had made mention when he kind of talked about it later that a lot of the hardware manufacturers and resellers and stuff are all coming on board to make sure everything was in compliance with the upgrade. And I know that included you. He actually specifically pointed you as being one of the ones, like with the TC9 and with the Eliminator and some of the other stuff, that you guys were making sure that everything was going to line up with the level 2 upgrade. So I was just wondering, on yourself personally, how involved were you with the level 2 upgrade stuff, or was that basically just your people that were writing the software?
No, I didn't. I had gotten out of writing any software with Flex. Flex was the last thing that I did anything with, and it was mostly time. I just didn't have time to do with any of that. Rich was the main guy that wrote software that we sold. He did OPAC and some other things. And other people just sending it, just managing the business and trying to keep up was all I could do to keep up. It was really a hectic time. So I didn't really know how to program anything in OS 9. I didn't have that expertise. So.
Okay. We got a question from the chat here from Al Hartman. He's actually not too far from where you used to be.
Oh yeah, I remember that name. Hi, Al.
He was asking, was there a reason that Flex was never ported to the Coco 3?
I thought it was. I don't remember that we didn't. Well, Flex was TSC had something called multi-flex. That is probably why. I think Flex itself was just a 64K operating system, and I didn't own it. I was just a licensee of the thing. That's probably why. I don't remember enough. I wish I could tell you more about it, but other than the fact that what would have run like OS 10 Level 3 would have been, it was Uniflex, not multiflex. It was Uniflex. And I don't think that product ever took off for TSC, Technical Systems Consultants. I don't even know if they're still in business. But that's probably why. It was just never a multi-user operating system.
Yeah, that was my guess, because OS 9, as you mentioned before, was kind of restricted on a 64K machine. Like it would barely run, basically. Is what it was. Yeah. And once level 2 came out and you had like 512K and you had windowing system and everything else, I think Flex would have had a lot to catch up on, and at that point, there's no point.
Well, there wasn't any software support for Uniflex that I was aware of. They had languages and stuff, but I know Tandy was
party then.
No, I don't know anybody that developed for it. I know Tandy talked to TSC. They were either going to put Flex on the color computer or OS 9. For whatever reason, they ended up with OS 9. And once they decided to go with OS 9, there would be no reason to go back to TSC for Uniflex, because the OS 9 was a more natural upgrade for them. But I never talked to TSC much. I think they went out of business not long after that period of time. When I went down there to license it, there was very few people there. Maybe a half a dozen people.
And one of the other questions I was going to ask you, I kind of forgot about until we just started talking about it, but there was a rival Flex for the Coco by Spectral Associates, I think it was, if I remember. Yeah. How did TSC do that, where they would license it twice for the same platform?
Oh, well, I didn't get a I said this before. I probably forgot. When I went down there, I had no idea what the market would be, and they wanted $12,000 for an exclusive license, and I didn't think I would sell enough, to pay for that. I think we sold enough for the first month, but they were. So I got a non-exclusive license for $6,000, and that allowed anybody else to come out with Flex for the color computer. So they did. It didn't really bother me. I found out surreptitiously that they were coming out with it and what the pricing was. And I dropped the price that we were selling. I think we were selling it for $200 down to meet their price. But, they would sell the operating system, and then the people would come to me to buy all the other software, so The operating system was just one part of what we were selling. It wasn't everything. So I should have kept the price up higher a little longer, but because I could, I did drop it. So they weren't really competition to me. And I asked him, I remember with one of the Coco Fests, I said, geez, why did you bother doing this? And he said, well, we see those big ads and we thought you were making a lot of money and we wanted to get in on it.
They thought you were a big business too with the smoke stacks. They had no idea.
One of the things I think it was them. I won't blame them for it, but somebody who was advertising Flex put an ad in that was right on the page next to mine for Flex, but they forgot one key thing. They didn't put their name at the bottom of the ad. So when people would call us up, they assumed that we put that ad in, and we said, oh yeah, you know. whatever it was, yeah, we'll sell you that, you know. So, and I saw the guy at one of the Coco Fests, and I gave him a little razzing about that. You know, geez, thanks for the free ad. You know, appreciate that. Did you make any money on that? I said, you know. So that was kind of fun. It was a lot of fun. I think the Coco Fests were the most fun. That was another thing that I had no expectation, no idea what was going to happen. It was my traveling companion. The first one, I was still wearing. It was in the winter, as I recall. I still had boots on, and we got down to the booth, and they started the thing, and there were so many people you couldn't get out in the aisle. So I could never go and change, and I ended up wearing my boots for the whole evening, you know, until the thing was over with. And I'd never given a talk to anyone. I'd never done any, talking in front of people. And Lon came over to me the next day, and he said, "Whoever it was, so and so, backed out of giving a talk. You want to give a talk to these people?" You know, sure. What the heck? I didn't think anything of it. And so I went up and I walked into the room. I guess they announced it or something. I walked in the room and it was full. There was, I don't know how many people in it, but there was a fair number of people, 50, 100 people, whatever. It was a small room. I walked in, looked at them, turned around and walked back out again and go, holy crap, what have I got myself into? You know, I didn't know what to do. I had no notes. You know, there's a video of it around somewhere. I had a little piece of paper with a couple of things written on it, you know, that I was, key points, and I went back in and talked. I think Rich was there, and he came in and helped me out, and that started the doing those talks. After doing a few of them, I got more comfortable doing them. But the first one was just like doing the first column. I think that was for Lon, Rainbow. He said, well, I won't pay you for it, but it'd be great, advertising for your company. Why don't you do this column? The first one took me 2 or 3 days to write. It was just torture because I'm not a writer, not at that time at any rate. But towards the end, I was knocking them off in a couple hours. But the first one was tough, And I had a lot of fun writing those too. Like I say, I was going after Tandy, I went after them with level 1, I said, well, you can't.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh, Jesus, and maybe I was instrumental in getting them to come out with level 2. Who knows, But I probably burned some bridges there that I shouldn't have, But,
Were you ever kind of put off by the fact that Tandy stores wouldn't advertise for any third-party people like yourselves?
No, I understood why. The companies like that, shelf space is measured in inches, and each inch of shelf space has to generate a certain amount of income, or it's not worth doing. And third-party stuff, you couldn't put it on the shelf. They did come out with a catalog, though, at some point.
Yeah, that listed press order or whatever it's called, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's true with all companies, Walmart, all these things. Products have to sell to justify the amount of space they take up in the store or on the shelf. And the third-party stuff wasn't, And I was talking to guys at Tandy about it, and at that time, I think they had, 8,000 stores? Something like that. And if you got them to handle your product, you had to get 8,000 to put on the shelves, plus another few 8,000 for inventory. So, they were talking about a major investment for any product. So you see one thing on the shelf and you realize, well, there's 8,000 stores and each store has got the same thing. It's a major investment. There's a very interesting, it's several years old now, about a company that had some kind of weird paper product they were trying to sell it to Walmart. And Walmart, it took them quite a long time. Walmart helped them reduce the size of the product so they got more out of a signature. Sheet of paper is a signature. You got this big sheet of paper, and they weren't getting very many copies of their product out of this signature. And they said, well, if you change the design a little bit, you get one or two more, and you can drop the price, and we can sell it for less money. So that's the kind of things you have to go through if you're going to sell to a major retail. And we weren't anywhere near close to that. I think a typical Radio Shack, a single Radio Shack store probably did as much business as we did. So we weren't that. I refer to myself as we were a big fish in a little pond. I was very small. So no, I wasn't upset about that at all. I understood the rationale for it. I learned a lot from that experience. So, got anything else? They keep asking me questions. I remember this stuff.
I know we probably take a break pretty soon, huh?
Yeah. I think you have a hard out here coming up in half an hour.
Yeah. I've got an event going on at 4-ish. But
okay. I have one last question. It's totally unrelated to the Coco or computers in general.
Okay.
After you retired, I mean, you did some books like we mentioned and talked about a little bit there, but you also did acting in a play, like you said, doing a line. How did that come about? Like, how did you come from being a dental lab guy and a computer geek into being an author and an actor?
Well, we were setting right where we are now in an Airstream trailer at that time down here, and I was on Facebook, and Joe, my partner in crime, said, we got to get out and do something. We got to go do something. So I'm looking at Facebook, and I said, oh, look at this. The Coco Village Playhouse is having auditions tomorrow. Let's go do that. I said, well, they're not going to take us. I said, no, it's just fun. Let's go do the audition just for the hell of it, And so that's what we did.
The name was Coco?
Did I say Coco? Yeah, Coco Village. Well, Coco, Florida.
Oh.
So the historic Coco Village Playhouse. I didn't realize the connection when I was saying it.
Gee.
So we went and did the audition. Never did it before. Got up, had to sing, do a little dancing and stuff. As a matter of fact, it's up on my YouTube page. If you want to really get bored. That's where all of the Coco stuff is on a YouTube page. Just look for Frank Hogg on YouTube and you'll find it. Excuse me. Anyway. So the play was something called Sugar. It was based on Some Like It Hot, if you remember that movie. And they needed dirty old men,
They saw your ads, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't really have to act much. I fell right into it. And so I did it. And Joe, my partner, she worked with the wardrobe people. It was a very interesting experience. I don't want to do it again though, because it was a bitch trying to remember the lines. And if I had something with more lines, it would be impossible at my age and what few synapses I have that are still clicking together. It's just very hard.
So you give all these older actors credit, huh, for learning?
Well, it was an experience. I had one line, 3 words. I forget what it was. What's the story? Something or other. I played several different parts, as a lot of people did. I think I had 4 different costume changes. So I was on stage a lot. And I loved it. It was just a lot of fun. I'm a natural born ham, so I didn't have any problem doing this stuff and
Pun intended.
The dirty old man scene. We were just in these white like Panama suits. It was we're supposed to be down in Florida on this veranda, and the girls in the girl band were coming in, for the first time, one of them was Marilyn Monroe. You know that she was the sugar that was in the play, and so we were supposed to oogle the girls as they came in, which was, you know, it was fun to do, you know? And that's what
Not
we did.
hard.
There was 6 of us doing that. So
So you went into this audition without any thought that you'd actually get the part?
no, we were just going to do something different that we hadn't done before. So let's go audition. And I was shocked when they called me and said that I was part of the ensemble. And you know, I said, what's that mean? I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know about it. I never did any of this kind of stuff in school. You know, a lot of you guys probably did plays in school or anything. I had no experience at all. Completely new to me, and it was just a blast. You know, I wrote a book about it. Did some. The book's got a lot of pictures. The girl that played Sugar, I think, was prettier than Marilyn. And you know, in the movie, Some Like a Hop, there's these 2 male musicians, and they're running away from the mob in Chicago. That's the whole premise of the thing. And so they get dressed up as girls and join this girls band. Tony Curtis and I forget the other guy's name. So the guy that was playing one of them, we're
Jack
backstage. Yeah, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis. I think the guy that was playing Jack Lemmon in the play, you know, we were getting our costumes while we were rehearsing. You get in piecemeal. You get, you know, a couple of pieces today and a couple. So he had the thing that he was wearing underneath his clothes, but he didn't have his boobs yet. You know, he just so he had the thing, whatever it's called. You know, so we're in the hallway, and he just got his boobs. So he's got him stuffed in the bra, and he says to Caroline, the girl that was playing the part of Sugar, the Marilyn Monroe part, he says, "What do you think? How they look?" And she's feeling. She says, "Well, they feel pretty good." And I says, "Well, you know, now it's your turn." And ran out to the dressing room. I was just trying to help, you know. So
did you get slapped?
Yeah, I got a good laugh out of it, but it was a hoot. It was a lot of fun. That was in 2015, I think. Yeah, 16, whatever. But after that, after I did that book and the Caravan book at the same time. Actually, I finished most of the Caravan book, but I published the Sugar book while it was still fresh in my memory, you know, and then the Caravan book shortly thereafter. But there's a lot of work to do in those things, you know, to writing those books. A lot of work, and then when you get it done, people call you up and say, you know, you have this error on page 23.
Oh, gee.
You can proofread and proofread. Someone told me the way to proofread was to read it backwards. You know, you'll catch things if you read it backwards. Read it out loud.
My wife proofreads papers that are written for, you know, she does Alzheimer's research. So, you know, they're 800 letter words and stuff. And she does really well at that. I think it's a talent.
Well, Joe was my major proofreader. And so any errors I could blame on her, but
actually, my favorite quote from you in your blog when you were talking about writing it was that, you know, you had a lot of people complained about your punctuation and stuff, like you'd be missing commas and stuff. And you said that in one of your articles, you would just put a whole bunch of extra commas and periods at the very end that people could insert wherever they were needed.
Well, you may not know this, and I'm not bragging, but my formal education ended in the 10th grade. So I never finished high school. And, you know, so everything I would just go out and, you know, I learned how to program I bought a book on how to program, you know. So everything I've learned to do, I just learned to do by reading books about it. And so writing was never something that I did. I mean, I do a lot of it now, but back then in the early days, you know, I didn't, you know, I was neophyte, didn't know how to do it. But I learned. I put commas in now. Yeah, I do remember putting all those periods and commas at the end of the thing. So I think that was the blog, the Preble NY blog. I think I did that.
I don't remember which one it was. I just remember reading it. It was just hilarious.
Yeah. Well, in 2000, I was involved in Preble, New York. There were two things were happening. They were bringing in a Flying J truck stop to Preble. Preble is a tiny little town of 1,500 people. And the ski resort, Song Mountain Ski Resort, wanted to pump water out of Song Lake, where I lived, to make snow. So we were fighting that, and another group was fighting Flying J, and we kind of joined together to fight City Hall. I never thought we'd win either one. We ended up winning both. But in 2000, it got to be rather tedious calling all this. Maybe a little side note on this. You know, like Walmart wants to come into a place, everybody's against it. They know that it takes 18 months. And what happens is the first meeting, a couple hundred people show up. The next meeting, maybe 150. 18 months later, there's 3 or 4. You know, at that point, they've whittled it down. The opposition is unimportant. And it takes 18 months. And there's actually, I'm told, classes that lawyers take on how to bring in unwanted companies into an area. So in 2000, we were having that problem. When there was a meeting, like, you know, geez, how do you get all these people to meet? You got to make a lot of phone calls, and you try to get people to make phone calls for you. It was just too difficult. And the idea came, well, let's do a web page, and then we just tell everybody to look at the web page, and you would get that. And that's what started that web page, and it was used for an access. So PrebleNY.com was one of the first activist web uses, you know, and this is 18 years ago, a long time ago. It's still up. I don't do much with it anymore, but anything you see on there now would be right-wing politics stuff. So you might be, if you're to the left, you don't want to go there. But I don't update it very often. Mostly just don't get around to it. But that's where that was. I do remember that now. You tell, that's where all the commas and the periods were.
Yeah,
So,
right at the end.
yeah. Well, it was funny. You know, you had a town of 1,500 people, and the first night that the web page went live, you know, you could check to see how many people accessed it. It was like 250. Oh, well, that's a lot of people, you know. And the next day it was 500 or 600. It was like, wow, who's reading this thing? And then it got up to 500,000 hits a month for this little web page in Preble. And it was because everybody in Cortland County, where Preble is, were looking at it because it was so new. You didn't have, you know, that kind of thing going on. And as you said earlier, you know, I'm, you know, I'll say what I think, you know, and I didn't have any family in Preble. I was living there by myself at that point in time. And so there was nothing the opposition could threaten me with. You know, I didn't have kids in school that would be harassed and that sort of thing that a lot of other people had to deal with whenever they fought, you know, the powers that be, you know, as a little fiefdom in Preble, which I think is still active. They love me there. I would go to meetings, the town board meetings, and I knew everybody hated me. And it was like, well, this is kind of hard, you know, what am I going to do? So I would say to myself before I walked in, all the women want me and all the men are jealous. And I would walk in with a big smile on my face, you know. One day I got in there just when they started, you know, like I was walking in the door when they started. And I said to the town supervisor, geez, thanks for waiting. And she said, we didn't wait for you. She was so upset. So, but that's another thing that I don't ever want to do again. Another thing that takes a lot of time. You know, if you want to be an activist and go fight some cause, you know, you're going to have to devote a lot of time to doing it. It can't just be a part-time job. So, well. But now I'm just traveling around the country, seeing stuff that I've never seen. I've been in a lot of places with a color computer, but, you know, I know a lot of the insides of hotels, but never got to visit any of the places that we actually went to, you know, and just too busy. By the time the end of the show, we had a ton of stuff that you had to go back and ship, you know, that people ordered that, you know, we would run out of product. And by the way, that my favorite show was the one in Chicago, because that's the one the Canadians came to. And the Canadians came down with no credit cards with the Canadians. You know? One guy would come up, you know, and he'd order $500 or $600 worth of stuff because he was buying stuff for everybody
else.
home. Yeah. So, oh, man.
You get your bulk order, you drive to the show, and then you have to come back with your van filled with stuff.
Yeah. So,
Save the shipping. We save money.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have to pay. What is it? You have to. I can't think of the.
Well, back then it was like duty and tariffs and all that stuff. And
yeah, I think it was 25% duty, and so they were smuggling it back in.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. It works okay for me. So I'm running up against it now.
You don't miss the snow in Syracuse anymore?
I haven't been back for 10 years, and we were out at Claytor Lake State Park, and I was a little annoyed when we went up to look at the Claytor Lake. It's at 7,000 or 8,000 foot altitude, and there was snow up there. And I was annoyed because I had swore that I was never going to get involved with snow again. So I was, damn, there's snow here. But it wasn't on the road or anything. It was just in piles off to the side. But that's the only snow I've seen in 10 years.
I used to live in Rochester. I know how it goes.
Yeah. It's something. I moved to Virginia, in 2008, I think it was. We only had 17 inches of snow there in Radford. Beautiful section in the Blue Ridge Mountains. One of the nicest looking areas in the country is the Blue Ridge Mountains. Highly recommend it. And but after a few years, my blood thinned out, and I didn't like even the 17 inches of snow that was coming down in the winter, and it started to come down to Florida in the winter. And I'll be doing that from here on out. So, and we're getting ready. We're going on 4 or 5 caravans next year with the Airstream group, and then come back here for the winter. And don't know what we'll do the year after that. Probably some more caravans. But that's just a lot of fun.
Hope you come out towards Arizona and say hi.
Yeah, I was there. I drove through Arizona. It was 105 degrees. How can you stand that?
We had 119. Yeah.
Oh man,
you don't want to stand in the sun. When you can smell
the wood in the cabinets was shrinking.
Yeah, when you could be out in the sun and smell the permanent press coming out of your pants. That's bad.
Oh dear. Oh well. Well, we'll have to do this again sometime. That was a lot of fun, although I don't know what else I could tell you.
I'll go dig out some of the old ads and some of the old correspondence we had. Maybe I can come up with a few new questions.
Yeah. Well, give me a heads up, so give me a chance to remember. I mean, you're hitting me with stuff. I don't remember that, and some of the names I don't remember, and it was a long time ago. How long ago was that? 30 years now.
Yeah.
It's in the 90s when it died. Man.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and if you have any other contacts, that you think they might enjoy coming on and sharing stories with us, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
like your nephew, is he still kicking around and doing programming?
And matter of fact, when I got an email from the Chicago people that do the Coco Fest, and I sent it to them. I says, they're still doing this damn Coco Fest after all these years, And we had a chuckle over that. And he might be interested. He's sort of semi-retired. I'll send him an email and have him take a look at this. And when do you put this live? Or send me the link to wherever this is, and I'll send it to him and tell him that you were, because he could give you a lot of the technical stuff. He is one smart cookie. Designs memory chips now and stuff like that. So he could tell you all the stuff that I couldn't tell you.
Is he on Facebook much? Because we have groups on there.
I don't really know. I never looked. Rich Hogg.
I saw an article that he, I was looking for some of your stuff to maybe show on the show, and I ran across his name, and I thought, maybe that's his son.
No, it's not my son. I don't have any kids, but he's my nephew. Well, send me the link to it, and I'll send it to him and tell him you guys are interested in having him come on.
Yeah, it's usually posted on YouTube within a day, and then it comes out as a podcast on iTunes, etc. Within a couple of days after that. So,
all right, great. All righty, guys.
Okay. Well, thanks for dropping by. I know you got a hard out here, so I don't want to keep you any longer.
How do I get out? Oh, end meeting. If I click on this, I'm gone. Well,
Thanks,
everybody,
Frank.
Thanks for being on. Thanks for
Yeah.
answering all of our questions. Thanks
You
for the
were
products.
great.
Thanks for my TC9 sitting just over here.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the trip down memory lane. Looking forward
Glad you
to doing
came.
some more. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye
Frank.
now.
Yeah. See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.
And Grant, this is a perfect time for a break.
All right. I will go ahead and start the commercials here.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowan, and you're watching The Original Gamer, Stevie Stroh. And when you're done watching, come over and listen to the Coco Crew podcast.
Hi, this is John Linville. And Neil Blanchard. We are the Coco Crew. I hope you're enjoying watching Stevie Stroh play video games, especially the Coco games. And when you're done with that, check out our podcast at cococrew.org.
I just got disconnected. That happened to anybody else?
Yeah.
Where can you catch all the latest news
show
and
ended
information about the Tandy Color
abruptly.
Computer and compatibles?
Frank took us all down.
Yes, he did.
I'm talking about the Coco Crew podcast. Dig it each month. Join John, Neil, and Mike as they lay down the latest news and information about the Radio Shack Tandy Color Computer and
I'm going to run through
compatibles.
to a series of commercials, so if you guys can go to the bathroom, go right ahead.
To interviews, tech segments, and discussions all about the Radio Shack Tandy Color Computer. Strut your fine self over to www.cococrew.org and start listening today. The Coco Crew Podcast. Keeping it Coco, dig?
Some people have big plans after school. You know what Elliot's going to do? Jeff, too. Elliot's at work on a book report using Scripsit on Radio Shack's Color Computer 3. It hooks up to his TV. And Jeff's at his Radio Shack Color Computer 3 playing the newest football game. But wait, what's Elliot doing playing new Super Pitfall? And Jeff's having a blast with a new math tutor. You never know what you might try with more than 100 programs for fun and learning. Radio Shack's Color Computer 3 comes with everything you see here. Other items each sold separately. Only at Radio Shack.
Hey, this is Bruce Moore, author of Force of Doom, and you're watching The Original Gamer, Stevie Stroh.
Only the bravest souls enter. Only the most cunning return. Defeat innumerable monsters to ransom the king's scepter, stolen by the evil wizard. Your sword, shield, and wits are your only allies. Pray you find a magical inn as your only respite in the forest of doom.
For the Tandy Color Computer 1, 2, and 3.
November 2017, if you dare.
My fellow Americans, Australians, Canadians, Europeans, and all of you ands, I'm calling on all y'all to help us make the world great again by visiting the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com, where you can get yourself a coffee mug like this with a little cute cartoon character that says, I'm a Coco Nut. You could also get yourself a coffee mug like this with a Color Computer 3 that says, I'm a Coco Nut. You could get yourself a deluxe travel mug like this with the CoCoTALK logo on it. You might even be able to get yourself a DVD like this with over 2 hours of gameplay goodness. It is time for us to rise up and make the world great again by enjoying some quality retro merchandise and Coco nostalgia. So please visit 8bit256.com and let's make the world great for the color computer. Thank you very much.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
Oh, I remember that Christmas. Dad gave me my first shortwave radio from Radio Shack. What memories. This Christmas, we got our son's Color Computer 3 from Radio Shack. It hooks right up to our TV and was on sale for less than $130. The Color Computer 3 makes learning fun. Jimmy even lets me use it for word process when he isn't playing computer games. Lucky I still got my shortwave.
Save $70 on the sale-priced Color Computer 3, only at Radio Shack.
All right, we are now back. Thanks, Curtis, very much for doing that interview.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you want to run through news next? I don't know if you have all the links up from the list I sent earlier.
Yep, I have quite a few here. We'll just go right down the list here.
Okay, surprise me with the order.
First up will be Digger 3.
Yes, this is Chet Simpson's little surprise for the Christmas holidays, where he took his old Digger 2/Gold Runner 2000 code, and with some help from Paul Thayer of Timberman fame, did some updated graphics and stuff, and the game's really impressive. And it was, considering it was cranked out in 2 weeks, it's quite impressive. And it's a free download. You can get it on the Facebook group, just under Files. And he put some demos up here, like we're watching now, of some of the later levels. There's 6 levels, I think, on the demo. He's planning on taking it for an official release, if he can, by the next Coco Fest at the beginning of May. And he expects it to have like 40 levels by that time, and possibly a level editor as well. So, but very impressive for a 2-week turnaround from the old Gold Runner 2000 Digger 2 code. Really nice graphics too. Have you had a chance to play it? Anybody here on the panel?
No.
I have not.
Yeah, I haven't even downloaded it. I don't.
I've played it a couple times now. I played it in VCC. It works in VCC MAME in the real thing. Requires 512K, 6809 only at this point, or 6809 or 639 at this point. I've gotten up to level 3, and it gets really hard really fast. I can imagine Steve rage quitting a lot during this game. So
you haven't beat it yet?
No. Like I said, I've gotten up to level 3, and he does have a little warp codes like he had on the original Gold Runner 2000 too, where after you complete a level, you can write down a code, and then when you start playing it again, you can skip to that level by punching in the code, which is kind of nice. You don't have to replay the whole thing through, like say Stevie was doing with Downland.
Cool. All right, the next one up is Nitrous 9 Beta 3 Graphics Speed Up Pre-Release.
Yeah, if you want to just throw those videos on, I'll kind of explain a little bit what's going on. I released the Nitrous 9 Beta 2 upgrade, which had some graphic speedups for get put buffers and stuff, which we demonstrated on a previous show. So Beta 3, I've been just going through it and optimizing more. And the main thing I've optimized here is the horizontal line draw, because that routine gets called by a lot of routines. So if you're doing filled circles, filled ellipses, if you're doing overlay windows, if you're drawing, filled boxes and rectangles, or even just straight boxes, the horizontal line parts are sped up. So this has the benefit, and this is on the 6809 for the primary part. It has the benefit that basically almost all the graphics routines are speeding up. And I did some demos here, like this is the GUI B 3.0 that Sean Driscoll did to do some more fancier drawing. We've got the 689 on the left, the 639 on the right, and it's definitely running a fair bit faster. So all your existing software will start to run more quickly and more fluidly. This is one where during the bars, so Beta 2, the release from November 30th is on the far left, the Beta 3 with the update is in the middle, and the 609 native version's on the right. So 609 still will be faster. So it's not a reason to not upgrade. So I encourage everybody to upgrade that you can. But it's definitely closer. And one thing I wanted to do was have Nitrous 9's graphics libraries running fast enough natively that people can write some decent games even without doing direct manipulation of the screen. So this is another one here. I'm doing the filled circle, filled ellipse that randomly picks between the two. Beta 2 on the left, Beta 3 in the middle, 639 on the right. It's doing, because I've seeded the R&D exactly the same, it's doing the exact same sequence of filled circles and ellipses. So it actually ends up the screen looking exactly the same. And you can see how much faster it is in the Beta 2 that you guys have right now. So I was quite happy with the speed increase. And particularly the fill screen, doing a CLS on a graphics screen, is much, much faster, like 3 to 4 times faster than it was originally. And the last video, I think, shows that. Which only takes a few seconds to play. Do you have that one, Grant? Or?
Yep, it's coming.
Yeah. So left is Beta 2 and the right is Beta 3, and it's clearing the screen, a 32K graphics screen, 100 times to a random color. So the new version took about 3-4 seconds, or no, 7 seconds I think it is, and the old one took like 24 seconds. So it's literally 3 times faster. So, I'm doing some more tweaks. There's some minor changes to the circle and ellipse and flood fill functions and stuff. The flood fill should be sped up as well in the new version. Because the speed ups are greater than I was originally expecting to, and originally I was planning on holding off beta 3 until probably sometime in New Year because I wanted to do some other updates on some other things too, but that's going to take some time. So I'm now steering towards that right before Christmas. I'll do in the tradition of Kevin Darling when he released his Christmas fast script patch back in 1988, which gave us the first get put buffer speed ups years and years ago, is that I'll release beta 3 before Christmas. Just so that people will have these new faster graphics libraries if they want to start writing some stuff, or even just playing around with old programs that use those functions, because they'll all be faster now. So
cool.
That'll be my Christmas present to the community. It doesn't match Digger 3, but it's a little bit.
The next one up is Blitzport VZ200 to Dragon 32 and Coco.
Yeah, this was posted on Facebook by Matt Voss. He took a program from the old VZ, depending on where you live, 200, which is a VDG-based computer. And he ported it initially to the Dragon, and then he since ported it to the Coco 1 and 2 and 3. And it's kind of like a little bomber thing, but he's got the download available for that if anybody wants to try that. It's one of the old semi-graphics games, so it was a nice little download.
All right. And the next one is a couple of people, but not others, are having problems with the Boomerang 2 meg and MPI. With the
Yeah,
Coco
I was kind of
SDC.
hoping that Ed Snyder, Richard Lubieski, and Bill Noble. Bill has the problem himself, and there's a few others that do too, at least one I know of. And then everybody's been trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They're kind of thinking if it's a timing issue, it might be a certain mix of certain cards or a certain gimme chip. And as we were talking with Frank earlier, the gimme chip itself had timing problems that were random between chips, even of the same year. And there might be something related to that. I know they've been kind of discussing back and forth. I haven't had a chance to check Discord this morning to see if they've actually gotten any further than that. But Ed and Richard both tried to duplicate it using the same hardware, like the Boomerang with an 86 gimme and an 87 gimme and a mini MPI, and neither of them can duplicate the problem. So it seems to be a very intermittent problem with only certain configurations of machines. So hopefully they do manage to figure something out. Grant, I was just going to mention too, you're echoing like crazy again. So if you want to just bring up the screens, I'll just take it away. So if you want to bring up the next one, which I think was Carlos. Oh wait, it just came out pinned here. That's why I can't see it. Okay, so Carlos has got two things that are coming up here. He's making replacement badges. Now this one here is the RAM badge that the older D&E boards on the Coco 1 had. That's the one where the Radio Shack label is off-centered on the left instead of centered. And they actually had the RAM badge, and you'd replace it as you got upgrades. You had 4K, 16K, 32K, and we never had an official 64K RAM badge. So he's making these. He's got his first prototypes, I think, from China, and he's got to add some adhesive and stuff in the bottom. But he's planning on selling these, so anybody who actually has one of the old D&E boards will be able to actually have the proper label on the top to tell you exactly how much RAM you have in your machine. And then he's also doing a replacement one for the Coco 3. And this is tied into the Boomerang and the upcoming Cloud 9 board for doing 2 meg of RAM. So instead of saying, 128K, Coco, we've seen, I think Myro had a 512K version. Now we've got a 2 meg banner strip, and that's a different link I had there. Grant, if you have that one kicking around, has a picture of it. But basically we'll have one for the 2 meg boards now too that actually will say that your Coco 3 has got 2 meg of RAM in it.
Yeah, I ordered one of those, and they're very nice, very sharp.
Oh, you got one already? So they're shipping?
Yep. Yeah, his 2 meg one. I think he had on the post there or something. I says about sending, and maybe that's a little different, but yeah, I have one that says 2 meg on it. I just got here recently. So
how easy is it to glue that on and take the old one off? Since I've never done it.
I haven't tried it yet. I just have it. I just got it last week.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll be kind of curious to see how well it peels off. So I'm doing it as part of I have a Coco 3 board. I have a Coco 3 power supply. I'm trying to get a keyboard. I'm basically kind of throwing together a Coco 3 that's going to be all modded up with all the different accessories and stuff.
Cool.
So
keep us posted on that. I'd like to see how that all turns out.
I will.
Maybe you can use a hairdryer to heat up the old label
Same way we used to
and
take the warranty stickers
peel
off.
it off. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, doing something to get a little bit of heat, because it's just like a double-sided tape, I think, that really
yeah, yeah.
All right, next up.
Number 7.
Oh, you fixed your echo.
Oh, is it gone?
Yep.
Well, kind of. I heard a little.
I'm not hearing it like as bad as it was.
It wasn't as bad as it was.
Okay, this
Retro
is
Rick's.
Yeah, Richard Kelly. He's been talking about making this little disc magazine like we kind of had in the old days with T&D and stuff. And he's actually got his first issue out now that you can download and take a look at. I don't know if you want to try to bring up the... Is it a disc or a PDF? I can't remember. I think
It's a disc.
Yeah.
And I think there's a PDF with it.
So people can download that, and it's actually kind of the first active disc/tape magazine we've had in a while. We've had a few attempts to do newsletters type stuff. We had Mary's from way back, and then Ron and a few others were working on the Rainbow Online type thing. So it's kind of interesting seeing this. It might be a way to gather up some of the new software all in one place too, so people don't have to hunt down yet. Where do I find the bombing blitz ports, and where do I find Digger 3 and stuff? You might be able to just kind of amalgamate them all into a disc magazine. Maybe you can do it every month or every so many months, and kind of gather up all the new stuff in one shot, and then some original stuff just for the magazine itself. So that would be interesting.
Cool.
So that's on Facebook as well.
All right, and then number 8 is mention worst game and illegal things discussion.
Yeah, these are posts that basically are put up on Facebook to start a discussion. Now, both of these have gotten a little bit of controversy, I'll say. One is what do you think the worst game is for the Coco? Well, that's very subjective. And some people might take offense if you say that all their games suck or something like that. So I would have worded it a bit differently. I wouldn't have said worst game. I would say the game you personally least like. Because I saw somebody said that Dagger is the worst game because it's hard to type all the commands fast enough, and quite frankly, it's one of the best games, as far as I'm concerned, and some other people as well. So it's definitely going to be a differing opinion between everything. And also, you got to take into context some of these games. If it's a first game, a 13-year-old wrote the first machine language program ever. Well, you're not expecting Steve York level of programming at that point, so you have to take that into consideration. It's just like when Stevie was doing his early game reviews, and he'd say, this version of Pac-Man really sucks. Well, that version only required 4K to run. So within its merits or within its context, it's actually a very good one. So a lot of stuff that had to be taken into consideration. But there's a lot of interesting games being mentioned, and it's funny to see the differing of opinion where some people will mention a certain game. No, actually, that was quite good. I don't know what you're talking about. So that just shows you humanity is quite diverse. So there's a whole thread.
Growing up with color script set.
Well, like I said, the color script set was one of the easiest games to get high scores in because you just punch in the high score table directly and you were ready to go. So I always got first place in script set. Same
and
with
what about this
Telewriter,
illegal
VIP
things?
Writer, I was just awesome at those games. The second one that was kind of the second one that was discussed there, I think Chet started that one, was asking what illegal things you've been done on a Coco. And I don't know what the statute of limitations is in the States. We don't really have one up here in Canada. So if it's a felony, you can talk about it 50 years later. You can still get nailed for it. So that's a pretty risky one to start discussing. I think the one we can all agree that most of us did is probably software piracy. And most of us were like teenagers or kids when they were doing this, and you couldn't afford all these new games at $40 a crack type thing. So
software piracy? What's that?
Yeah. I'm not condoning it, but at the time, it wouldn't have been a lost sale because I couldn't have afforded those games anyway. And when I did get older and I had my own job and stuff, I did start buying software. So, I tried to make up for it as much as I could. And Stevie's mentioned this before. Some of the original authors, if they set up a kind of a donate site and put their games up for download, people would probably give them some money. It might be 30 years late, but at least they get something out of it. And I've even mentioned this to Chet and stuff. And Chet, his philosophy nowadays is he would rather just see his game out getting played as opposed to making money off of it, which is very altruistic of him. I don't think everybody has to agree with that sentimentality. So if somebody wants to re-release their stuff and wants to make just a few bucks, you're not going to make a living off it or anything, but it would be nice to have a way to donate some money towards the guilt payment, I think is what Steve felt guilty from pirating it back in the day, and you can help the author out now when they're
So, Curtis,
busy
what
wandering
is the
around in
most
internet.
illegal thing you ever done?
I'm not saying. We have no statute of limitations in Canada. Like I said, I could get nailed for it if I started. I went far beyond cross off of piracy. Let's just put it that way.
Does breaking the warranty sticker count?
Did you tear a tag off of a mattress or
yeah.
pillow or something?
Yeah, and I hung them out, to like the Vikings did with, heads on a pike type thing afterwards to warn people off.
One could say joining this group.
Anyway, it's an interesting topic, but like I said, it can be sort of kind of incriminating, I should say. So I'm not going to dwell on it too much longer. If you guys want to get involved in the discussion, like I said, I think the law in the States is different. I think you guys do have a statute of limitations on some of these things, where if you talked about it now, you wouldn't have to worry about anything afterwards.
Yeah, some things don't have a statute of limitations, but most are 7 years.
Yeah.
So those are two big discussions. I think there's probably 40 to 50 comments on each of those two. So if you want to get involved with it, head to Facebook and get involved if you want.
It would be a good read.
Yeah.
All right. Number 9 was William Astle.
Yes, and you'll have to bring up Discord for this one to see the screenshot. He's been going through the Spectral Associates Unraveled series, which is disassembling the basic, extended basic, disk basic, and super extended basic ROMs, and recommenting them because there's a lot of mistakes. I mean, it was kind of rushed just to get the information out to people who wanted to modify the ROM or learn how to hook into it and stuff. And he discovered there's some extra characters. There's an extra mini character set of characters for the HPrint command on the Coco 3 that are not part of the standard gimme duplicate set that you normally see when you do an HPrint. And if you can bring up the picture of that one.
What room is it in?
Number basic, tag basic. Might have scrolled up a little bit. But anyway, he found a bunch of little graphical bits for like close window, resize windows, scroll bar arrows, background for text with horizontal lines and stuff like that. And actually, they're all duplicates of what Microware put into Multiview, some of which were used in the Multiview that was released by them. Some of it was planned for the future in the level 2 upgrade, which had stuff like resizing windows and movable windows and that kind of stuff. But, and I hadn't known this until he did it either, that some of those are actually built into the ROM and the BASIC. And if you do a couple of pokes to tell it where to go find a font, you can enable that set and actually use it yourself. In fact, you can poke back and forth between the two. Yeah, so over here, for example, we're seeing the left 4 are these scroll arrows, the standard stock Multiview ones that came with Multiview back in 1987, 88. And then you got some resize windows, and you've got the Tandy menu, which is that kind of hourglass looking thing, which is actually in Multiview even to this day. And we've changed a few of these in Multiview ourselves on Nitrous 9 and ease of use just to make them look more 3D and look better. But yeah, these were designed by Microware and actually put into both products. They were put in Super Extended Basic and into Multiview itself. So that was an interesting find. I'd never heard of that before. Never knew they were in there. So he says he's going to be releasing the disassembly update with new comments and stuff. And I'm assuming he'll also tell you how to get that mode enabled so you can actually use them in your own programs in BASIC.
So are those like sprites of some kind, or?
No, they're character cells, like 8x8 character cells.
Just like
HP.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are their dots?
8x8.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Okay. Same as they are in OS 9 too.
Cool.
All right. And then the next one is number 10. And this is for our very own Ron DeVoe.
Mm-hmm.
Did your parents use your color computer?
Yeah, and I thought this would be an interesting one, not only to see what the responses that Ron's got on the page, but also if anybody in the panel here hasn't answered it, and I haven't had time, to go tell us of their own experiences with their parents using the computer. And I imagine for the people on the Facebook page in particular, because we've got some younger people coming into the retro hobby and getting these old computers that were around before they were born. So in their cases, they might be that was their parents' computer, and of course they used it a lot. And us older generation that got Cocos as, teenagers or kids or, in early 20s ourselves, probably our parents had no idea what a computer even was, no interest in it whatsoever. Ron will be an exception to this, I know.
Yeah, that's my dad. He died in 92, so that's before he passed. But yeah, I'd already been married and got my Coco. First one was $300, and it included all that you see there, including the TV. Well, that particular TV is the club's TV. We had our Coco Club had a TV that they loaned out to people. And
So your dad was one that used.
yes, he did.
Coco.
He was a typer. He used to type on a typewriter, and when he got on the color computer, I had the Mark Data keyboard. He liked it because it was close to what the typewriter had, and he did pretty good. And I used to do invoices and stuff on my business, and he would type them in, and he was good at it.
So you got him started on using the Coco, not the other way
Yes,
around.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And a lot of people commented on there about the same type of thing where, some of them, their parents had nothing to do with it and didn't even like computers at the time.
Yeah. My dad falls in that latter category. He never touched it. He never touched a computer ever type thing. My mom got a little bit involved in very specific things. Like she never generally used computers at all, and the Coco in particular at the day. But there were a few games she actually did like. She did like adventure games, like Sands of Egypt. She actually helped me solve it. She would just sit there over my shoulder. She wouldn't type or anything because she never typed, but she would give me suggestions of what to try. So she got involved that way. And then later on, she really liked Shanghai. That one, she would actually sit down and play once in a while. So kudos to Rick on that. But I was wondering on the rest of the panel here, what was your experience with your parents on?
I remember my mom and dad would always play double back and downland. So it was more of a gaming, when just playing games with the family. It was before the Nintendo came out.
Okay, Jason, you were saying something?
My father, Ken Senior, he would type. He worked in a hospital in a lab, and he would type up. I guess if I remember correctly, it was like some of the procedures for different tests in the lab, and then there was another program. I think my brother had wrote for him that would work with the particular statistics for his job. So he did quite a bit of stuff for his job there. And then I think later on, like Grant was saying, my mom would play Shanghai and some of the other games.
Okay. Anybody else in the panel want to?
Well, I had an unusual case with my parents. They used the plug and power controller with the Coco to control the lights in the house.
Now, is that something they came up with on their own, seeing it advertised, or something you kind of?
Oh, I put it in for them.
Okay.
I had my game done. That dilemma was inspired by my dad's business at the time. He had a little donut shop, so that's where the little game idea came from that.
So is he the angry Angelo in the game, or is he the main character?
Yeah, that's what he's modeled on.
So did he have a lot of police as patrons?
No.
Oh, not like here?
Yeah, I think that's a North American phenomenon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, my father was a mechanical engineer. When I was a kid, he dealt with a slide rule, and then when calculators came along, he bought calculators. But when computers came along, he was not interested in them, and he passed away in '93. So it was at the point where computers were starting to be used a lot, but he, in his job, could get away without using one, and never did get into it. And my mom played some Atari back in the day, but that's about it. She never got into computers at all.
Anybody else on the panel want to chime in?
My mom's 86. She's on Facebook every day. No kidding.
Yeah. I bought my mom an iPad a couple of years ago, and she, plays with it a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, my mom's got an iPad too, and she abhors Facebook. She never goes on Facebook. She doesn't have an account anymore.
Same here.
But she does do email, and she does do some local games, and she watches Netflix. She's not in the room with the TV. So
my mom gets a ton of single men wanting her to friend her. So I come to her house. I have to go and delete
you have to be her filter.
Yeah, 30 different people that have tried to friend her. But she does good. She doesn't make any comments that are incendiary anymore, because she would get, she'd start getting people to, try to communicate with her seriously about stuff. And and she's not real good at spelling and stuff, so she get frustrated. So I told her, don't, stay away from the politics stuff, and she does pretty good that way.
Okay, well, I think we got just about everybody here, but yeah, that's a really interesting conversation. Please go to the Facebook group, Ron's there, where he posted that. There's a lot of responses. It's really interesting reading the responses.
All right, number 11 was Chet's post on a question: what is or was one thing you wanted for the Coco during Christmas?
Yeah, well, once again, a very interesting thing. Seeing some responses, like the responses changed depending what your interests were. Like, people that played games wanted certain games. Some other people wanted hardware. Some people wanted upgrades. I was going to ask you, for the panel here too. I mean, there's a ton of responses on Facebook too. You can go through it if you want to read some of them out, Grant. Feel free to. But I was also wondering what people here would have wanted back in the day, and then also what would they want now.
Sound chip.
I hear that one. Pun intended.
A real-time clock.
And a clock, yeah.
Back in the day, I think it would have been games. I didn't have many. I had like Space Assault and Megabug and Lancer and Robotech. And I think that was about all I had. I can't think of any games specifically though that I wanted. I wanted a Space Invaders, I know that, but I don't know which one. The Space Assault wasn't quite like the arcade.
I know when I was in the younger days, I always wanted games, and I remember one thing I always wanted a lot was floppy drives and other hardware, because they were so expensive back in the day.
Yeah, I spent my own money to buy my floppy drive, and it was over $400. Yeah.
Brian, you were about to say something too, or?
I was going to say for Christmas, my mom and dad did get me the my first color computer 2, but beyond that, everything was I had to buy it myself. They didn't understand it, as far as what the technology was, and I could put a list together, but they didn't really understand this stuff and the attraction to it. They still don't to this day. I mean, my mom got her first smartphone here just in the past couple months, so it was still just a keypad type phone is what she was using. But yeah, no, they got me started with the hobby. But beyond that, yeah, like everybody's saying, they're whether it was the floppy drives, the games, or a modem, or a monitor, whatever it is that I needed, it was all on my own. But yeah, they got me started with at least with a Christmas present.
Like myself personally, when I was younger, like in my Coco 1 and 2 days, I definitely wanted games, and it was just basically open rainbow and just pick, because there was a ton of them coming out at the time, and a lot of really good ones. And then by the late 80s, early 90s, it was hardware upgrades, because by that time we had a pretty good super Coco system at work, and I wanted a lot of that stuff in my own home system too. 1 and 2 meg upgrades, and multiple serial ports and parallel ports, so I could run printers a lot faster and all kinds of stuff. And then eventually, when I got the TC9 to tie it in with the interview with Frank there, I mean, that had most of that stuff built in. It had 2 higher speed serial ports. It had a real parallel port, 8-bit sound, 8-bit joysticks, an AT keyboard. It had a lot of the stuff that I wanted. So that kind of solved most of my things there. But there was still a lot of other hardware I wouldn't have minded having. Anybody else?
Well, my first Coco was a Christmas present. Well, technically it was a present for the family, if I remember correctly, and still have it. And then, anything else, I think it was games and a disk drive. I think eventually we did get a disk drive around on a future Christmas. So that was a night and day difference from cassette, of course.
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
Of course, everybody wants a Wallaby cable for Christmas, all right?
I guess what do I want for Christmas these days? I probably won't be this Christmas. It's too late to get it done by now. But we've got a lot of new hardware coming out that looks really interesting. Different sound solutions and mega MPIs and extenders and stuff like that. One thing I would really like to see upcoming years is software to use all this stuff. because right now it's just going to be demos and things from the manufacturers at this point, and I really want to see some support, which is starting to happen. I mean, Nick and Chet and a few others are going to be supporting some of the sound chips. Steve as well. I'm planning on doing some stuff in Nitrous 9 to start supporting that stuff once I actually have the hardware to test it on. So that's my main hope for, I guess, next Christmas, because like I said, it's a little bit too late to wish it all be done in the next 2 weeks. But to see a lot of software support for all the new hardware that's coming out.
All right, cool. Anything else? That's all those on the list here on my end.
That's all I got.
Well, this was
Something's
very
happened in the last
organized.
hour too.
This was very organized and well done.
Well, Steve's not here, so you can pass. So.
I didn't say
All
anything against Steve. Steve has his own way.
Hey, Nick, did you have a cord
Just
dump?
fine.
No, nothing
I
today.
got the flush. Come on, you got to come up with something.
I didn't. No, I don't have anything unless Curtis wants to say anything.
Nick, I was wondering if you wanted to give an update on your side project.
Oh,
doesn't have to be visual or anything, but you can mention some of the things you've been.
oh well, okay, I can talk about it, and
all right, let's take
the cord dump.
It's only a 5-minute thing, just for the sake of playing the flush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All for Grant.
We'll go ahead and do a commercial real quick, and then we'll do the cord dump.
Then we'll flush
Have
Nick.
you got the intro graphic as well?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
All
Stevie's
right. Well,
upgraded me.
Show, of course we have
we'll
that.
do a 5-minute cord dump.
All right, here we go with the commercial. So if you need to go to the restroom or anything, go right ahead. We'll be right back.
CoCoTALK will return after these messages.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
There's a woman on here now.
What's going on, guys? Stevie Stroh here, and I want to say thank you so much for being part of this adventure with us. It's been such a great experience in doing CoCoTALK every week, and the support we get is just amazing. And so the fact that you watch and listen is all the reward that we need. However, if you would like to become a patron of the show and offer some financial assistance towards the production and hosting costs of the show, we do have a Patreon site available for that, and you can reach that by going to our website at cocotalk.live and clicking on the Patreon link. But just do us a favor and watch and listen to the show.
Fletcher, I don't need that report tomorrow.
Great, JT.
I need it tonight.
But JT...
Fletcher saved $300 on her office away from the office. Radio Shack's revolutionary Model 100 computer. It's a word processor, phone directory, and dialer. It even communicates with the office computer.
Fletcher, how's that report? Fletcher.
Radio Shack's Model 100. Save $300 and put it to work.
You'll go far, Fletcher. You'll go far.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
All right. Well, we got
There
that
you go,
in.
Nick. You happy?
Yeah, we got the flush. My life is whole. Now, I think I mentioned some of this last week, but for the sake of having a 5-minute cord dump, it's a side project I've started on my from my main game, and that is to go and redo the Rupert Rhythm. And I think I talked about a bit about this last week, but at the moment, I've taken my old Rupert Rhythm game, of which I wrote back in '88, and there were a few things I wanted to do with the game back then, but there was a bit of a rush to get it out at the time because that was one game that I was writing for the Tandy over here, so I was working on a time schedule, so hence Rupert Rhythm I've never really been totally fond of. So there's been a bit of talk over the few months saying that I should just, fix it up or do a new Rupert rhythm or whatever. So the other day, the other week rather, I thought I'd bring out I've got the source code, the original source code. I started looking at it, and while looking at it, I thought, well, I could fix it here, and I could do this, and I could do that. And before you know it, I've started already modifying or updating the game with a few of the fixes that I had wanted to do back then. One of the main things, and I think I don't know, did I show the new title page last week? Can you remember, Curtis?
Is that the one with Sting on it?
Yeah. No. Well, no. There was another one where there was a guitar.
Oh yes, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've changed the title screen with that new having a key. What do they call that instrument? A guitar. A guy playing a guitar, which was more suitable to the original theme rather than a guitar. So it's got a more graphical intro, a few other little cosmetic changes. I've removed a few things like the 50 hertz, 60 hertz, and the RGB and composite options.
You had a bit of a rage quit with composite there, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the colors do not match the RGB, and I was just looking at it thinking, well, this looks shit now, even with the new composite setup. Just leave it as is. Just, I'm going to support RGB only. It's the real mode of the color computer, not that terrible composite. So I'm getting. I took that out, and I took out the 50 hertz, 60 hertz option as well, because I don't know of any even people down here in Powerland who actually ran the game in 50 hertz anyway. 60 hertz works even down here. Most TVs can sync to 60 hertz, and 60 hertz runs faster as well. So I thought, well, that's a pointless option anyway. So I ditched that as well. But the other big thing I'm going to do is no one's actually played the game that I'm aware of to the very end to see the concert. Because in that game, when you finally solve the puzzle, and the puzzle being where you've got to collect the parts of music that have been stolen and then rearrange the parts so that you can play the entire song, in the game, when you reach that point, it actually changes the screen. It draws up a concert stage with a crowd, and Rupert is standing on the stage with a guitar, and the song from the puzzle is then played out completely. It was probably good in 1988. It's my first Coco 3 program, and it had sample sounds, and it probably was okay. But looking at it now, it's a bit lame. And actually, I do have a video of it, so maybe I could play that. So for all the people who've never seen the concert, it's a bit.
This is the original version of the concert, though, not
This is the original one, the one that I'm going to update now. So I'm just jazzing up the graphics a bit, and I'm thinking of changing the song, or the going from what it has. It has a few little samples, but it's pretty cheesy music, and putting in a proper sample track in there. So, but if you want, I can try and access the original the video. How's that sound?
If you can, just we can hear it.
Well, I'll give it a try. Hang on a sec. I wasn't really prepared for a.
I can honestly say I never even got close. I think I maybe got like 5 or 6 notes.
Okay, well, I've got it up. Yeah, so a lot of people haven't seen it. So I'm going to try and share. Let's see, where is it? That one. And share computer sound. So hopefully that'll come through sound and all. So are you looking at the static screen now?
Yeah, you can see the screen.
Okay, so yes. So when you do complete the game, it draws up this screen. I've just paused the video. So as you can see, it puts up the big banner in the top, Rupert Rhythm Live. And before I go any further, the first thing you'll notice is the word rhythm is correctly spelt. I have always had the wrong spelling for rhythm. So I've gone in and changed it, so it's got the correct spelling. So Rupert Rhythm Live, it draws a very simple little stage with two little boom boxes for his sound system and the crowd down below. So I'm going to be jazzing it up a little bit, tidying up some of the graphics, maybe put a few flashing lights on there as well. I don't know. I'll see how I go. But the song itself was good for 88 maybe, but it's pretty crap by today's standards. So I'm going to be upgrading this. But here is the original concert from Rupert Rhythm. I'm going to hit play now. Can you hear the crowd? Is that coming through?
Yeah.
All right. So it's so pretty basic. It just takes the little samples that I had already in memory at the time, and it just plays a rhythm, and that's the song. So it's good for 88
that's
maybe.
To make the top 40, Nick.
No, it won't. So I'm going to be changing the song and jazzing it up a bit, so it's a bit more of a reward actually getting to the end.
You're going to put a couple of Marshall stacks behind him now?
Oh no, I think I like the Ghetto Blaster look. It has a real retro look to it.
Yeah,
So I'll probably just leave those in there. But at the moment, I'm just tidying up the crowd at the front. You can see the crowd. The graphics are just simply stamped in place. So in some parts, they actually chop part of the if it's right next to another head, for example, it just it chops out part of the other head and all that. So I want to merge it, make it a bit better, maybe fill it up a bit more, and maybe put some more flashing lights and stuff on there. But most importantly, I want to change that terrible song.
Make the speakers boom too.
Well, statistics are that 2.3 children come to the show, so the 0.3s are kind of half, you know.
Oh well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's not too bad, but I mean, since I've gone this far, I might as well do all these things that I hated about the program all those years, and finally be able to turn around and say, yeah, Rupert Rhythm was a good program. It's my first Coco 3 program, so I was learning at the same time. Looking at my code, there's a lot of things I sort of scratch my head and I say, oh, why did I do that? That's so stupid. But anyway, there you go. That's basically all. I mean, I might find other things as I go. And by the way, bringing up the concert as well, I also, looking at my old code, I discovered that I did put a cheat mode in there. So I found the code and I found out what I needed to do to make it come up. So now I can actually jump straight to the end concert. So, and that's how I was able to get this video. So I probably won't activate it in the final game either, but at least I know now how to bring it up on call. So, and there'll be a $10,000 prize for anyone who can find it. No,
I'll start disassembling that. Oh wait, this is Australian dollars. Maybe it's not worth it.
No. Anyway, so that's the end of my core dump. Unless anyone else has got anything else to put on there before we put the final flush.
I think you could probably get a better crowd cheering sound too.
Yeah.
That sounded more like tape.
Yeah,
noise.
that one. Yeah, it's just a very simple noise generator. It just it does a hiss, and I think it also there's a bit of a click in the crowd noise as well. I did that because it was small. I didn't have to have a sample in there.
That
crowd.
click is people holding their lighters up.
Well, yeah, no, but I think that the click might not have been there originally. I think it might be put in because of changes I've done now to the code, and I've buggered up part of the noise because it uses the data in the code to generate a random number, and I've done some changes and moved some of the things around, and I think that's upset the actual the noise generation. So, but anyway, I can fix all that. That's fairly easy.
Well, just don't do like what they did on the skiing cartridge, where most of the cartridge was the sound of the crowd applauding at the end.
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
most of
It was the most
no, well,
wasted bit of ROM I've ever seen on it.
exactly. And I didn't want to put. I could have sampled the crowd and had a proper crowd sound, but I didn't think the crowd was really the main emphasis of the concert. It was the music, and of course, as it turned out, the music's crap. But I'll replace that with a proper sample. I think Rupert Rhythm was designed to run in 128K back in the day. Well, this new version is going to need 512, and that's only because of the added graphic and sound assets that I'm adding into the program.
Okay,
Anyway,
cool.
So yeah, there's my core dump.
Okay,
All
unshare
right.
your screen.
Well done.
Unshare your screen.
Yeah, unsharing. Hang on, when I find the blasted thing again, I can never find it because stop share. Here it is. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, you can put the toilet flush now. Oh, not the whole song.
I won't have the toilet flush by itself. They're not that sophisticated.
There it is.
Plus,
okay.
Stevie's trolling us right now. He said, "Don't forget to wipe after this dump and make sure to spray some air freshener."
We also have a question in the chat from somebody calling themselves Vocal Studio, asking, "Are you doing anything with the 609 for Rupert?" I don't believe you are at this point.
No, that's staying as 609.
I believe that's Bruce.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Rick
Now,
is
your new
also
game Gunstar is definitely 609, and then Chet's new sack race is going to be 609 too.
Yeah, well, I'll do. Well, I'm doing the new game firstly as 609, and when it's all done, then I'll try to reverse back and see if I can do at least most of it with the 609. I'm not utilizing 6309 that heavily. It's only in certain parts where I need that extra speed. If I revert those to 609, maybe the game then will run a bit slower and I might have to take something out. I don't know. But yeah, initially it'll be 6309.
Cool.
And since Paul Thayer's joined us here late, you want to talk a little bit about your collaboration with Chet on the graphics for
yes.
Figure 3?
Which, by the way, very good graphics and a good update to Digger 3. It's a great little game.
Yeah, it's a lot of. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. I don't know what to really talk about, but Chet.
When did you guys start collaborating? Like, was it just in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So what caused the collaboration? Did you reach out to him? Did he reach out to you? Did it just a random conversation or what?
About 3 weeks ago, I reached out to him asking him if he needed an artist for his games or whatever, because the graphics is kind of my forte and the programming is just out of necessity. And he said he had somebody working with him for Sack Race. And then the next week he messaged me asking if he could see my graphics for Downland, which I thought he just wanted to see what the graphics were. I didn't know that he was intending on using any of them. But that was later established that he was going to use the bat and a couple other assets from that. And then I asked him, can I redo the character designs? And he said, yeah, for sure. So then we just we worked on that, and a lot of the other tile stuff, that was a lot of just stuff that he had pulled from the internet or made up himself or whatever. I did find a new tool though, through his help, called Piskel, and it's just like a web page where you can do pixel art of sprites. It will animate them at the same time while you're editing them. It's got a lot of really simple tools, but it's really, really cool and really useful. It's got everything you need in it. but it's really simple at the same time. So, and then he
What's
just
it
does
called
his
again?
magic. It's called Piskel.
Oh,
So
Piskel.
Piskel. Yeah, it's really awesome, and it's got this really cool feature on it where if you're editing a frame, there's like this little button that looks like an onion being peeled into layers, and you can click on that and you can see kind of like superimposed the frame before. So it kind of helps you like with animation sequences, kind of line things up without like traditionally what I normally have been doing is, I'll draw one frame and then I'll go to do the next. And there's some stuff that you copy and paste over, but other stuff you can't. And then I'll flip between them just to kind of, line up this pixel or that pixel. With this tool, I can just have it superimposed underneath and still edit the frame that I'm currently on. It's really a cool program.
So it's almost like using the clear cell thing to use an animation for movies and stuff, then where you can see the frame underneath and kind of gauge where you're moving stuff around.
I wouldn't know anything about that, but yeah, it kind of sounds similar to that for sure. So, and I like the fact that it animated the sprites while you were drawing them. That was really cool. You could turn it off or whatever if you want to. And you can export them into various types of graphics files. You can save them right on your browser too, or you can download them onto your hard drive and everything. It's really cool. It's a really awesome tool. I think I'm going to start using it more often. It kind of inspired me to want to make one like it for. I got a sprite editor I've been working on and off for like a year for the Coco. But the more I think about it, the more it's like it's easier for me to just use the PC for that kind of stuff and then convert it over. But yeah, so that was the collaboration there. I played that game probably every day for solid 2 hours each day. Kind of we're going through debugging and trying to make things faster and stuff like that. And yeah, it's pretty. I think it's really good where it's at right now. And I think he has plans for making a full up Digger 3 game, and this is just kind of a 6-level teaser for the holidays for everybody.
And actually, he just joined us, so he can actually.
Yeah, Chet could speak on that. He's got a trip tomorrow, so.
Welcome, Chet. Or is he muted?
No, I'm here. I'm just getting all my stuff set up.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that was how the collaboration began. I actually reached out to him for friendship to begin with, though, because he's kind of a, I don't know. I played a lot of his games and I really like him, so I was like, I want to connect with that guy. So and we get along pretty good. So
yeah. Paul was really helpful. Not with just the graphics, but with the testing and the feedback. Him and Brian, really hammered on the game because early on there was a lot of changes going on. Like the bad edition that I wanted to see what Paul had done with that, how it would actually fit into the game and some of the backgrounds, and I was just really impressed with how much it really made the game shine. I was like, yeah, we got to use these.
Yeah, it was that edition of the enemy really brings the game out. It was really incredible because it was already difficult enough. Well, it's a challenging game, but it's really fun too at the same time. So the addition of the bats, I think, was perfect. So
yeah, I have to try I've gotten up to the first bat level, which I think is level 3 if I remember.
Yeah, not the Bat Cave.
Yeah, and I've been trying to play it on the emulator just because I'm busy working on the Nitro 9 stuff at the same time. So if I just need a break, I just fire up an emulator and do it. But I don't have a joystick on the Mac here, so I'm playing on a keyboard, and it's a little awkward trying to run to grab a gold and then duck down on the ladder. It sometimes misreads the keys and stuff. So I really got to try it on the real thing with the joystick. I think it would probably be a bit easier, but
yeah, it's much better on the real Color Computer 3. But I know with that, Curtis, when you start pressing the up or down and then also hit the direction you want to go, right or left at the same time, you'll slip into those tight spots a lot easier.
Right.
Yeah, I think that was a change that Chet made kind of late, but I think he put it in there. Pretty sure.
Yeah, the input handling from that was in Digger 2 was just absolutely horrendous. I mean, it was far worse than some of the minor issues that you run into. I've actually got a new input handler that has dominant key management. So you can press up and turn right, and then turn down again, and it'll actually hold which the order of which you've got those keys pressed, so you can actually go back and forth between them, and it makes it a little bit easier to play. I've just got to finish up polishing the code and get that. I'm actually hoping to get that out before Christmas. I'm gonna have a little bit of time when I get back from my trip to clean some stuff up and make a little bit of polishing up. So get a couple more levels in there and do another release closer to Christmas when I've got a little bit more time to work on it.
Have you actually been pre-designing the levels like quite far ahead of time? Like you were mentioning, I think on a Discord chat earlier that you were planning on having like 40 or 60 levels on the final version of the game. Have you already got quite a few of those planned out, or are you just kind of winging it as you go? Or
no, there's actually there's 4 different tile sets that I've got planned for the 4 because you've got 10 basically 10 stages and 10 levels per stage, and you go through each one. And there's a little bit of polishing up to do, and then so each stage will have a different set of tiles as you go along. So the game changes a little bit, and that's one of the things I've been looking at trying to swap a little bit of memory on so that I can include different types of actors in the later stages, so it does tend to evolve a little bit.
Oh, okay. So not just changing the backgrounds and the colors and stuff, but actually changing like the AI and what the things your opponents and stuff do as you progress through these levels.
Right. I mean, I've got there's everything from like little booby traps to different things that affect the way that you interact with the level and can get through it. So some of the later worlds will, or the later levels will actually be a little bit smaller, kind of the single screen up and down, but it actually becomes much more difficult to get past some of those.
Okay. So like Stevie will never see these levels, so we'll have to have some.
Definitely not.
Oh, dude, he'll be tossing his stuff out the window real quick. I mean, I give him 20 minutes max, and he's done.
And the final version of the program, when it'll have a level editor as well, you said. I think last time I was talking to you.
Yeah, actually, what I'm actually working on that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a set of documents in a video that shows how to use Tiled to actually create the levels for it. And, I mean, I've already got the tool. I've got to do another release of that has some additional support for it, and then they can create a level that way, load it onto a disk, and test it out and share it with other people. And I'll go through the different aspects of designing a level to keep the rendering and the frame rate consistent, and how to add objects and manage those, because there are a lot of nice little features that it's really, really basic to use.
Cool.
Is 2 megabyte enough?
It's 512K.
Yeah, this one's 512. It's the other game that takes 2 meg.
Yeah, this will be the probably the last 6809 project that I do. But there are certain aspects which will probably be updated for 6309 in order to get some additional speed out of it. So you'll probably have a couple of different 2 different versions of it. Plus it makes for a nice test bed for the other projects that I'm working on.
And the final product, are you planning on having it as a free program, or is it going to be the final one will be a paid or donation, whatever?
No, it'll be free. It'll be free. I mean, get everybody to play it. I mean, it's 30 years on. Everybody should have a chance to experience what some of these games could have been like on the Coco. Had we had the time or the knowledge or the abilities to hammer through some of the stuff that you can use in Tiled. Could actually you could make a really complicated game with it. You didn't have some of that stuff back then. So that's why I've been trying to keep kind of basic. But how be able to play some of the stuff that's really, really good on the color computer and really showcases some of the stuff that it can do.
Yeah. So Digger 3 has been in evolution since what, 92 when the original one came out?
91, close. Yeah, 91.
91, yeah.
Yeah, and that one was actually I put that one together in about 3.5 weeks.
Cool.
Yeah, the original Digger, which was more of a gold runner clone.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was. I mean, I really just did that one for kind of fun. It was just to see if we could get one on the Coco 3 and running at 128K. I think that was the last 128K project that I worked on.
And then was 97 around there that you did Gold Runner 2000 and Digger 2, which was kind of when you got the horizontal vertical scrolling added in?
Yeah, that was 96 to 97. That was while I was at Microware.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you guys don't write things for 4K anymore, huh?
No.
Why?
We like to fight with the MMU.
Right? Yeah. What a battle that can be sometimes.
So, but yeah, it's. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say that tiled program. I really like it too, and I'm probably going to end up using that for laying out levels for Downland because it's so intuitive, and you can do everything that you need to in there. It's almost like why build something customized, you know? The only thing I have to figure out is how I'm going to take the files that it outputs and convert them to whatever Downland's going to read for knowing how the level layout is. But that shouldn't be too hard to do either.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I've got the map converter up on GitHub is it's hopefully going to be easy enough to integrate into projects like that, either just by defining something either in an XML or a JSON file. So hopefully by the time you get onto that project, I should actually have that up to speed, so you should be able to use that as well.
Yeah, if PicoProd would stop giving me headaches, I'd be all right. I could move on.
So yeah, I mean, it was really fun doing it too. I mean, we started right before Thanksgiving when I found the code, and it was one of those things where, hey, if I can actually get this couple of pieces up and running over the weekend, then maybe we can actually do something with this. So it was luckily able to get everything up and running pretty well. I still have some early videos. I may put something together for it.
Yeah, I would just have to say I was honestly very surprised that something with that much of a visual change from the original came out that quickly. Especially after you hadn't looked at it in 10-15 years.
Yeah, I was really surprised that I was able to get it up and building fairly quickly, because there was actually problems in the code. There was actually some bugs in there that just would not do it. And then there was apparently I had introduced a bug into my assembler from the time that I'd written that to the last time I touched it. So I had to go in there and find that and fix that, make sure that it was managing the direct page properly. I was really surprised. And in fact, there's one bug in the runtime where when it comes up to the prompt, it prints Coco twice. And as soon as I saw that, print twice, I was like, oh yeah, we're there. We've got that known bug. I was really happy to see that, because I hadn't booted this stuff up in 20 years.
So you've been able to come back to the 6809 fairly comfortably after being away from it for so long?
Mostly I mean, my biggest problem is dealing with the 69 versus where I've dealt with the 6309 so long. That was one of the things that kind of got in my way when I originally did this project. I've been in so much into the 6309 that there's some things that you get used to, having those extra registers, having some of the bitwise operators and logical operators that don't require a register. You get used to those, and that's how your flow of optimization kind of goes while you're writing the code. And so yeah, it can certainly be a little difficult time to shift gears back into that, but you do pick it up quite a bit, because when you've delved into it that deeply, where you've had to, with the Coco and getting some of that stuff done, and for so long back in the day, it is like riding a bike. It comes back to you pretty quick.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a very good game. Like I said, I've only gotten up to level 3 there, and like I said, I'll have to put it on the real thing with the joystick so I can navigate those corners a little bit better. But
yeah, I'll be giving it a try later on this afternoon. Here.
I'm hoping we're going to have an after dark here either today or tomorrow, and we can get Stevie to play, because I want to watch him rage quit.
We want the rage quit.
I'm going to have to try and show up with that one. In fact, I just got done packing for my trip, so it's I was really happy to have some time, and hear Paul talking about it. I'm not sure how long you guys have been had brought it up, but yeah, I was really really surprised that I've gotten some pretty good feedback on it. I've actually got a couple of defect reports that of things that I want to address. So I don't know if it's of course I'm developing it kind of blind. I don't actually have a real Coco back yet. I've got an XPad.
I think you've got stuff ordered though, like you're getting one fairly.
Yeah,
soon.
I got my monitor from Boise. It showed up a few days ago. I picked it up yesterday. Nice big old hefty one. So I've got that. I've got the XPad. I've got the speech and sound cartridge. A lot of the stuff that I'm collecting right now is stuff that is specifically for the development of games, so that I can actually go on and test them. I've got to get a PSG and a GMC ordered. I want to actually get a Sursound from Alan to try and play around with that, or get the specs from him and see if there's any possibility of supporting that within a game. It's on the serial port. You've got the RS-232 port as an option.
One thing is, Alan doesn't sell those. He just tells you how to put it together yourself.
Perfect. That's perfect for me, because at least it gives me a chance to to test it out, and if there's any other tinkerers out there, it gives them something to say, oh hey, yeah, that we can get this working and test it with it.
Well, don't forget about Ed's Mega Mini Multi-Pack.
Oh yeah, I got to get that one too. I'm getting the whole slew. I've got a whole list of all of that stuff. I mean, it's just like back in the old days. I'm sitting there going through catalogs. I've hit like 4 or 5 different websites. Writing stuff. It's like, yeah, we'll get that.
Are you sure you don't want donations here, like shareware or something, to help cover the cost of all this hardware?
Yeah, no. I mean, if somebody feels the need to do that, there's animal shelters and other shelters and other charities that they can give to.
Yeah, well, we shouldn't call Stevie an animal. That's kind of rude.
I just do it because I've always enjoyed it, and it's there's so many people that are coming into the community now, and there's so many different hardware options. I'd rather that you go out and spend they take that the $29.95 or $24.95, get some of that hardware and play, because the more that we can get some software out there, and the more that the hardware vendors can sell it, the more everybody's going to enjoy it. The more that kind of churn continues to go. You're not maybe just going to stop at that sound card. Maybe you'll start looking at a couple of other options too.
Yeah, no, it'll actually help feed itself. It'll help feed the community as a whole. The hardware will feed the software, will feed the hardware, will feed the software type thing.
Cool.
Well, that's the reason why I picked up that multi-pack. I figure support the sound, that particular sound hardware, and then other people like yourself there, Chad, you'll go through and you'll support it too, and we'll get a lot more hardware that way. Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you finding? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Nick.
No. I was just going to ask Steve something. I'll ask when you finish.
Okay. I mean, it's one of the things that that I'm hoping to get done with Digger 3, like right after the holidays when I do have some time, is to get some of that that sound support in. I know that I think it's May I can test both the GMC and the speech and sound cartridge, but for some of the other stuff, I'll certainly have to get real hardware. But at least it'll be a start, because I figure I've got a game that's working. If I can at least drop a little bit of sound into it, I also gain a little bit of CPU time that can go to some more graphics. So it'll be nice to actually get some of that in and really see what opportunities that it opens for code wise in other areas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was going to just ask Steve, how are you finding the Mega Multi-Pack? Have you used it much, or?
Tell you the honest truth, it's still sitting in the box because I got to get the Coco out of the garage, which is going to require a 2-day project.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it's
garage must be like David's house.
Halloween and Christmas display stuff. So
yeah,
and the Christmas stuff isn't out on display, so we got to get the Christmas stuff out. Then I got to pack away the Halloween stuff, and then I can finally get to the Coco.
Right. All right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we have already seen that we're going to have to do some updates on some of this hardware that's out there, so that they're all compatible.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe come up with a driver model that people can share between the different cards, so that you can write to a common API, so that most of the cards will run.
Here's the thing with that, Curtis, the driver module that model that we could put between that will support all of them will probably be about 3 times the size of the game to begin with.
Well, we got 2 megs, so that's not a problem, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well,
I'm joking.
I've got to get Richard making more of those boomerang boards then.
Yeah.
I'm sure he won't mind
megabytes is so big for Coco. That's so much room.
I don't know. I've
500
making one of
okay.
mine already. So
It's like an endless universe, is what it seems like to me.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I could fill it up very quickly.
2 meg seems big, you know, when you compare it to you starting to hit the sides of the 512. But I still remember back in the day when I went from the Cocos, well, really, you only had 32K of RAM when you had a cartridge in, to the 128K. I go, ooh, lots of room. I realized, Rampage, I was using every single byte that was available to me. And I couldn't believe it. I'm going, I got all this freaking room now. What am I doing here?
no,
But I
double buffering a 32K screen rips half of it right off the bat. So
Well, I was also doing a lot of decompression of stuff too, you know, sound, graphics, and like that. So, yeah, it just, it was a nightmare back then.
Yeah, I think it was probably a lot harder then than it is now, because I mean everything was developed probably primarily on the system, right, Steve?
Mhm.
Like it was all done on the Coco.
Well, I used Amigas and PCs to develop most of the software at the end, and then
Okay.
actually test it on the Coco.
Got it.
You know, download it in there.
'Cause
no, my graphic editors and compiling was done on the PC, and the audio was done on the Amiga.
Okay. Cool.
that's kind of what Nick does too, because he
I,
does.
I just haven't hit the 128K barrier myself yet, but nothing that I've done has been real expansive. So we'll see. With Downland, I'm thinking I'm going to hit the 128K barrier, but Simon's pushing me not to. So
Yeah, well, the thing is, you're going to hit that barrier when you sit there and say, gee, I want better samples.
Yep.
audio
Yeah.
samples. And I want
Yeah,
more variety, because tell you the honest truth, once you've heard that great one that sounded great when you recorded it, it's been there, and then you've heard it for the 2000th time, you go, I need variety.
right. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And he's a lot more willing to compromise about that stuff than I am. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, you'll probably sit there and say, change the variety when you change the level when you load it in for the disc.
Yeah, that game I was gonna have levels loaded off of disk for sure, but I've debated whether I want to pack everything in 512, because then we don't have to sit there and wait for loads. But I mean, if you're using an SDC, the stuff is so fast anyway, it really doesn't matter that much. So
Yeah, plus you can enable streaming mode in the SDC, so you can just blast stuff off of the SD card from like files that are a gig length if you wanted to.
yeah, we were talking about that the other day, doing cutscenes on the Coco. I was like, isn't it crazy that we could do that shit now? That's insane. Like make
I
like
wanna
little
see
videos in between them and stuff. That'd be awesome.
I want to see someone develop something like a Dragon's Lair game, the Laserdisc game on the Coco, using that streaming option.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
It would
Well,
require an
the-
SDC though. You wouldn't be able to do that in 512 or even 2 meg, I don't think.
No.
No.
But you got what, 2 gigs that you can access on the SD?
Yeah.
SDC? Yeah, that's a huge amount of memory for a color computer, so it'll be interesting.
Well, you know, the thing too is just amazing how the SDC has sold so well. I mean, the numbers are like back in the old Coco days.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, it's just about it's going to be coming up in 4 figures here, I think, in the next year or two.
That's crazy. But I mean, you don't want to really get off. If you have to buy something new to support disk on your color computer, it's kind of unrealistic to get a floppy drive. I mean, unless you really want to have it for that nostalgia or whatever. I'm not sure, but you know, because I don't know how easy it is to even get floppy disks anymore. It's probably really easy, but
yes,
yeah.
I've always dreamed about it. My program's loading 5 times slower than
exactly. There's
my
no
life
reason
goal.
not to get the SDC. That's my point right there.
Yeah.
Well, the SDC is nice too because it simulates both a floppy drive for backwards compatibility, but also simulates a hard drive, so you can get faster speeds and larger files and everything else too. And
Yeah.
the streaming on top of that. So
And from a programming perspective, the disk controller works exactly the same. So, we've been able to, with Simon, I guess I should say Simon, not we, because he did almost all of it, but putting things on disks, writing the sectors, and faster than BASIC ever dreamed of. So yeah.
Yeah, us old people have been around a while when that's all the media we had, and then we still have it because it's sitting there.
Well,
and we
that's
still
cool.
remember, us old farts also remember back in the days of tape. So even floppy disk is a huge improvement.
I remember the days of tape too. And
I've got a box of tapes.
If I had a floppy disk drive for my Coco, I'd probably still use it. I'm not gonna lie, but I didn't. So SDC was the next best thing. So.
Plus, you can't get away from that nice, lovely.
There's that creepy voice again.
I have several floppy drives, and I use my SDC almost exclusively.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
I love the purr.
I have a mix.
Where did David Ladd come from? I didn't even know you were on here.
You've been asking that question for years.
The $1 million question.
I've been right below your window, waiting for the perfect opportunity to sneak in.
That's creepy alone.
Welcome to Stalker Talk.
I'm really glad we don't live in the same state.
Or in my case, the same country.
Yes.
Well, he just made it before we end the show, and so did Rick Adams.
Oh, cool.
Oh, hey, Rick.
Oh, OmniStar. A game that has been frustrating me as of the last couple weeks, but I like it a lot. I think that game is sweet. Yeah. It's just hard.
Yeah, well, maybe it's too hard. I don't know.
I don't know if it's too hard, but you know what I like about it is, okay, so based on your storyline of what's going on, I feel like it's very real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a guy who's trying to hack into this system that I really don't know much about, and there's not a whole lot of clues. It definitely puts you in that environment for sure.
Right. So you gotta love puzzles to like this game. Otherwise, it's good. You're gonna rage quit this game.
Well, I haven't ever got to the point of raging, but I've just been like, yeah, all right, I need to step away for a while. But it gets you thinking outside of the game too. You know what I'm saying? You'll walk away from it. I'll go be framing my basement, and I'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try this next time. So,
right.
It's a cool game. I recommend it.
Remember that I decided not to be really cruel. If I wanted to be really cruel, I would have all the little, programs and viruses and things that you find in the system. I would randomize what they do every time you play the game.
Oh no,
now
don't do that.
That would just be too cruel.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If you find out what one of them does, and you make a note of that, it's going to do that next time. So eventually you'll know what everything does.
Okay.
And then you'll be able to strategize better.
You could make 2 levels of difficulty, then you could have an expert level
I've
where
been
you
doing
actually do randomize it, and then somebody gets really familiar with it and you can beat it too easily on the.
I would feel too mean.
Yeah, but if
I
it's
would feel
optional,
like
you're not being too mean, then it's self-inflicted.
I know. That would be the insane level.
So I also noticed that I could log in at Steve Strobridge, but there was a problem with that. I couldn't get past level 1 no matter how hard.
Chad really knows the show.
Yeah. I wish he was here, but
he's in
chat. You realize we've got 5 game designers on the page at the moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the show is approaching 3.5 hours.
That's
right.
Never ending.
That's why I came in late.
Right, we got to keep it
Gonna
alive.
go right into CoCoTALK after dark.
Up here in Michigan.
I told Alice I'm going to go downstairs and program for a little while. She, and offer this along in case there's the call's still going on. She says the call's not going to be going on. I said, well, maybe not.
Rick, that's the exact same thing that happened to me. I came down to my computer to start doing some code, and I was like, oh, these dudes are still on here? That sounds way more fun than trying to figure this stuff out right now.
I'm surprised I figured out that I joined.
For more than 4 hours, contact your physician.
And the thing is, it's not like we only meet once a month. This is once a week.
I know.
4 times a month.
Yeah. I think about the Facebook page when I first got on in 2015, I think. And the way that it's grown in the last 3 years is just crazy, man. But what's really nutty is that we had this retro video game store called Game Changers. Okay. Now these dudes had a Coco 2 and a Coco 3 in their inventory for about 2 years. And the last time I went in there, both of them had been purchased. And I was like, there's nobody else in this city that I know of that does it. But now there's at least 2 others, and I haven't had a chance to connect with them, and I'd like to.
Well, they might be somebody turning around selling them on eBay or something.
That too, yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what happens with this.
Or they're hoarders.
I don't know,
Very
man.
rare. Color
It seems,
computer.
unless they're like eBay surfers for, that stuff, and they've noticed that in the last couple years the sales of Coco 2s and 3s have gone up. Yeah, I guess that's possible because I went to the junkyard the other day to get a part for my car, and I couldn't believe how many people had wheelbarrows full of stuff that they were just going to resell on eBay. So I guess it's the same, they're like, oh, these Coco things are hot. I'll go find these things or whatever.
No, what it is, somebody comes in there, they see something like Ultratron. I mean, they'll see some ridiculous little Coco thing, and it's going for $900.
Right.
They're going,
Yeah.
this person can get $900. No, the person never got $900 for that. But they just see the fact that there was an auction for $900. They're different.
Right.
I mean,
And-
some of the Coco books I've seen even on Amazon listed at $600-700.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I do since I have a load of this stuff? I usually call my wife over and I go, hon, take a look at what this is selling for. She goes, we're rich.
Not yet.
No, I'm still taking air.
Yeah, you have to sell it. You got to find the buyer, the sucker, whatever.
Well, and the amount of the availability of color computers in the last couple of years too, because I remember prior to getting on Facebook, the Facebook community, I had been using the emulator probably since around 2008, and there was CoCo3.com that I would go on every once in a while. But when I was looking on eBay for color computers, man, it was like it was impossible to find any. And then if you did, it was like $600 for like just the computer itself. So it's just crazy how much support and everything and how the community's just exploded in the last few years.
Well, I wondered if someday we're going to go on eBay and there aren't going to be any.
I'm sure that day will come. I'm sure.
Maybe.
No, they'll be just $10,000.
Right, exactly.
That'd be the same prices as Apple Ones are going for.
And of course, if you want to get an inexpensive Coco, you just go to a Coco Fest and wait for the auction.
Right.
Yep.
I looked at Amigas too at one point too, because I was kind of interested in those because I know Nick uses it. I got a friend who lives in the city that was like lives and dies by Amigas, and yeah, those things are not cheap right now at all.
I've never seen a boot screen for any one of those.
You've never even seen a boot screen, you said?
Never. Nope.
Yeah, because I played with the Commodore 64 before. Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, the only computer I saw other than Radio Shack stuff was a PET one time and the white Commodore. Which one? What do they call that?
Vic 20.
Yeah, Vic 20. My brother-in-law had one, but that's it. Oh, 99.4A. I had one of those for a short time.
My first doorstop.
A friend of mine had one, and he had a 8-foot table set up, and it started at one end and then ended at the other. He had the expansion.
Yeah,
box
your
thing.
disk drive, your memory expansion, your sound.
That's funny.
Yeah, I've got my old Coco set up here, and it's about 3 feet with floppy drive on the side. But and then when you put the printer on, it's 4 feet wide table taken up just with the one.
Yeah, I remember that when I was young too. We had a huge desk for all that stuff.
Yeah.
Everything popped out the side of the back.
Yeah.
Has anybody here ever had an MM1?
I did.
You did?
Yep.
David Ladd still has one, I think.
I sold mine for $700 back in 2000.
What were they like? Were they cool?
It was a pain. They didn't boot very good. They you had to have a password in mine, and I had it written on the back so I wouldn't forget it. Because I didn't always have the documentation with it. But I did find I still have the documentation for it, but the machine's gone.
You saying the password was on the back reminded me on Thanksgiving, my father-in-law had us move his safe out of his house. And just a small 13 by 13. And I pick it up to put it on the trunk or on the truck, and the combination was written on the back side of it. Like, okay, guess the stuff isn't that important.
Well, I remember at one computer meeting, a guy showed up with his equipment and everything, and I looked down at his monitor, and I immediately started grabbing all the Post-its they had around the monitor. They were his passwords and credit card number.
What? Oh, wow.
Shopping spree.
I quickly put them together, folded them, handed to him, and said, "Don't ever bring these to the meeting ever again."
Right.
Because I saw somebody that looked like they were about ready to get out a pen, like they're going to write it down.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't believe the guy.
Credit cards back in the day too. Shrink, and your whole numbers sitting on on a yellow sheet of paper for the whole world to see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've got to be going, guys. This has been a long show.
Yeah.
You don't want to stay around for after dark? After dark, it starts in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, pretty well. I might come back later, but I've got a few chores to do in between. So
that's why I was late. The chores. So
yeah,
I have a new color computer sitting at the door. Maybe.
Mm.
You needed another one, Ron?
One more.
Jeez, Ron.
At the door.
Always room for one more.
He needed it even higher.
Should be the MC10 at the door as a doorstop.
There's some occasions where I do give stuff away. You know, I'm not stingy.
Hey, Nick, one last question before you leave. So you're focused on Rupert Rhythm right now, as opposed to
at the moment, a side trip. Yeah,
I know all about the side trips. I'm just looking really. I'm really looking forward to Gunstar. So that's all.
Yeah, I will be going back. It's only a temporary side trip. So
do you find it hard? Do you find it hard to keep going on a project? I mean,
well, you do sometimes. If you've been working on it, you do get a bit of a burnout. So it's good to have a side trip just to get away from it temporarily, and then you come back.
Right.
So
that's my problem, because I do all these side trips, and then I find another side trip, and 15 side trips later, I still haven't.
Well, and part of it for me too is the idea generation. Like, if I could just put that on, halt for a little bit, it would be much easier to focus on one thing. But as soon as you start getting into like a huge roadblock in a program that you're writing, and you have this other idea that you could work on, that's what happens to me. Then I'll venture that way because I'm interested. But in the back of my mind, I'm still, working the problem from the other program. But the ideas just don't ever run out in my head. So I'm just like, I'm going to go do this for a bit. But
they come in.
OmniStar is pretty much stalled at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it doesn't have much of an ending, and I can't figure out what kind of an ending to put on it.
Or you need something spectacular.
Well, I think you got a while till anybody's going to get to the end of it.
You could have a little concert with some digitized drum effects.
I've got a spare tune I don't want anymore. You want that?
Have something rapidly flashing, and then we fall over, from watching.
Right. I'll just crash the machine. There you go.
All right, guys. I better go.
All right. See you later.
I might see you later on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as you get to the end, Rick, you could just have it do a cold restart on the Coco.
Oh,
Right, I could do that.
It's all for
There's
nothing.
one in there. Yes.
With some gimme sparklies when it crashes.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Or
I was thinking actually of I was thinking of toggling the cassette relay. Boy, there is nothing that'll make your heart stop like hearing the cassette relay click when it's not supposed to be reading a cassette, because that usually means your machine is totally crashed.
Well, what you should do is tell them if they hear the clicking sound, look for smoke.
Well, like you could tie it in with like certain glitches or something within the system, make something happen on the Coco, and then like tie it in with like maybe saying now the OmniStar has like reached into, like give them the impression that the OmniStar is starting to take over their Coco too, and that might be like lead into like a sequel or something.
Yeah, but wait, I have a Coco 3.
The closer you get to the end, the more that it starts off sort of taunting you, like, oh, a new user to the system. Well, you better behave yourself there, pal.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts, hey, what's going on? This is not funny anymore. This guy's, getting too good. And then, toward the end, the messages that normally would be taunting you are getting more and more fragmented. Like, oh, they've really got some system problems going on here.
Rick, have you ever played the game Portal?
I've seen it, but no, I haven't played it.
Because you are up against a computer, and it
lies to you.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
It just lies to you.
The fake is a lie. Yes, I love GLaDOS.
It's fake.
GLaDOS is marvelous.
Yeah.
Yes, that game has the weirdest, snarkiest sense of humor ever.
It's one of the best.
Oh yeah, remember that time when I almost killed you? Ha ha, that was really funny, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, guys, you ready to end this train wreck?
Yeah, we better leave a bit of a gap before After Dark. So,
right?
Are we going to have an outro?
Just remember, if Steve Stroberg, level 1 Steve,
Stroberg.
Yeah, Stroberg. If he finished OmniStar, you can too.
He did?
That's true.
He did.
Is that going to be in the sales brochure?
yeah, I wouldn't advertise that. I wouldn't advertise that because people will go, this game's way too easy.
Well, no. Just say that he was able to finish the game without rage clicking it, almost.
Almost.
DEFCON 4.
Okay, I'll get out of your way so you can quit. You can end this show.
But you really shouldn't call the show a train wreck because Stevie wasn't here.
Well, that's true.
I didn't think it was that bad. No.
He did launch it.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and hit the outro. Anybody else need to say anything before we hit the button?
Nothing for me.
Nope.
All right. Cool.
Everybody have a good day.
Had to get one in there, didn't you?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live. If you love the color computer like we do, then visit IMACoconut.com for all your color computer links needs. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, visit the Patreon link on our site at CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leighty, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Karen Anscombe, Simon Jonason, Wayne Campbell, Steve Batson, Brian Joyce, John Strong, and Barry Nelson. Special thanks to Steve Bjork for production suggestions and Brian Joyce for our best of episodes and bonus content. Please help support the Coco community by visiting some of its contributors. The Coco Crew podcast at cococrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club, host of Coco Fest at glensidecc.com. Jim Brain and Retro Innovations at go4retro.com. Tandy Assembly at tandyassembly.com. Boyson Technologies at BOYSON Tech.com. Get your own switcheroo at cocoman.biz and Cloud9 Technologies at cloud9tech.com. CoCoTALK is hosted by Steve Strobridge. Co-hosts, technical directors, segment hosts, and producers: Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Grant Leighty, Mark Overholzer, Ron Delvaux, and Jason Reichert. Production motivation: Steve Bjork. The CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Schalar. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. Coco forever, people. And let's not forget a very special thank you to Roger Taylor for getting us on the Coco TV channel on Roku.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for everybody joining this very, very long, almost 4-hour CoCoTALK. Thanks, Curtis, for helping out. Thanks,
when you say very, we hear
thanks,
it.
Ron,
echoes
for
back
the,
too.
guest.
Eight times.
Your echo's back there, Grant. So something must be something when you're sharing the audio.
All right. I'm hitting the button. Goodbye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.